Wu Manyue, so clever yet you traded a life-saving jade doll for a pile of rust? Thanks for the generosity, senior sister. A masterpiece of space magic. This jade doll can swap positions or take a death blow for its owner. A truly priceless treasure.
Fang Chen, you bastard! You tricked my treasures and tied me up like a prisoner? I will tear you into pieces!
Lei Zhenghai wanted to retreat more than anyone else, but he knew full well that if they voluntarily abandoned the boundary mountain and allowed hordes of corpse armies to pour straight into human territories, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion would show no mercy to him as the commanding officer of this defense. He ground his teeth and roared, "Military orders are as immovable as mountains. All disciples of the various sects cast aside your delusions and fight with your lives. If we win a great victory in this battle, I will petition the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion on behalf of my sect to distribute 200 merit points to every single one of you. Additionally, those who earn first-class merit shall be rewarded with 1,000 merit points. As for the elders of all sects, I will also submit a petition to grant each of you 10 Dustheart Elixirs. Those who earn first-class merit shall receive the reward of a 5-year cultivation study opportunity at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Those with second-class merit shall receive 2 years. Those with third-class merit shall receive 6 months." With that said, he took out a crystal magical artifact and hurled it into the clouds above. This is the Heaven Monitoring Crystal, which can record every single movement across the entire battlefield. All of your battle achievements slaying enemies will be documented faithfully. Whether you can seize this heaven-defying opportunity depends entirely on your own efforts. The elders were filled with excitement. The Dustheart Elixir is an unparalleled medicinal pill for Golden Core Realm cultivators to boost their cultivation base, and only the Pavilion Master of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion can refine it. Only a small quantity is distributed to the 9 great sects each year, and each elder can receive at most 1 pill per year. Consuming a single pill is equivalent to 6 months of painstaking cultivation. Now that each of them can receive 10 pills, for elders at the mid-Golden Core Realm, breaking through to the next level is all but guaranteed. As for elders at the late Golden Core Realm, this is also an extremely rare, once-in-a-millennium opportunity for a breakthrough. However, the far more valuable reward lies ahead, the chance to study at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. How abundant the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's resources are is evident from this very merit reward vault. Compared to the 9 great sects, the difference is simply like heaven and earth. If one can earn first-class merit and study at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion for 5 years, no one can even imagine what realm they will reach once they emerge from seclusion. Yet, in stark contrast to the excitement of the elders, the disciples' morale was nearly impossible to rouse. Though the rewards were incredibly alluring and tempting, the harsh reality of insufficient supplies remained unchanged. They feared they would have the luck to claim these rewards, but not the life to enjoy them. Watching the disciples' low fighting spirit, Lei Zhenghai saw it clearly and grew anxious in his heart. His mobilization speech had not achieved the expected effect. He had no choice but to glance around at the crowd and speak. Whoever has surplus supplies or can find flammable materials in a short time will be handsomely rewarded by my sect. Gritting his teeth slightly, he pulled a tattered cyan-white token, covered in countless seals, from his bosom. Its entire surface was as smooth and lustrous as jade, and faint flickering thunder could be seen within, coalescing into 3 flickering, glowing characters. Thunder Evolution Token. Lei Zhenghai fixed his gaze on the several elders, placing all his hopes on them. This Thunder Evolution Token, I believe all of you elders are no strangers to it. Whoever can provide sufficient supplies, my sect will lend this token to them for 1 month. If you can comprehend the supreme great Tao from it, your path to soaring heights will be smooth sailing. The elders of all sects showed looks of shock in their eyes, filled with blazing greed. Even Lai Qingfeng was extremely covetous of it. He immediately gave a bitter smile and said, "Sect Master Lei jests. If we truly had such a quantity of supplies, we would take them out even without your asking." The rest of the elders also sighed with immense regret. Where could they conjure up so many supplies? Even if they had spatial storage artifacts, it would be impossible for them to hold enough flammable materials required for a full-scale war. Fang Chen was also extremely covetous. The scene of Lei Zhenghai descending from the sky in the form of thunder earlier had shocked him to his core. If he could obtain the Thunder Evolution Token, he might also be able to figure out that wondrous technique of transforming into thunder from it, just like Lei Zhenghai. Unfortunately, he also had no flammable materials, not even a single fire talisman. Brat, that is the Thunder Evolution Token. Are you not tempted? That is the token of the Calamity Temple, an extraterritorial divine sect. and it bears the cultivation method of the Calamity Temple. The evil spirit in his bosom suddenly compressed its voice into a thin thread, secretly transmitting it into Fang Chen's ear. Fang Chen spread his empty hands and said in a low voice, "Where am I supposed to conjure up enough supplies from?" Seeing Lei Zhenghai disappointedly putting away the Thunder Evolution token, the evil spirit said anxiously, "You can't conjure them up, but I can." Fang Chen was greatly startled. Could it be that this black mirror was also a spatial storage artifact, and a giant one at that? The evil spirit spoke urgently. Within this 10,000 Lai Great Wall lie war reserves left from the ancient era. There is not only lumber and fuel oil, but also large anti-cavalry spurs, long-range heavy crossbows, heaven, blasting thunder, and more. All these were originally forged to fend off ancient giants, and they are perfectly suited to combat the corpse army now. Fang Chen's eyebrows lifted sharply as he exclaimed in shock, "Are you certain?" The evil spirit scoffed. "Do you think a great cultivator at the late Nascent Soul Realm is a useless fool? The fact that I have lived for 2 full centuries alone makes me a living tome of history. I know every obscure detail of the past that barely anyone in your current generation has ever heard of." Fang Chen was left speechless. This rascal, give him the slightest bit of leeway, and he would immediately push his luck to the extreme. "If you keep rambling, Lei Zhenghai will take back his order any moment now." The evil spirit immediately spoke at a rapid pace. When the Great War ended in ancient times, a huge amount of war supplies remained unused. The demon clan proposed dividing them up, but one sage raised a question: what if the ancient giants returned to wreak havoc again? Thus, after several sages deliberated, they worked together to carve out a colossal sealed space inside the Great Wall. Stored all the supplies within, and even layered a time, freezing seal over it. Those supplies should still be perfectly preserved, with no trace of decay at all. Such an extremely hidden historical secret existed. Had the evil spirit not revealed it, no one would likely ever have learned of it. Fang Chen asked hurriedly, "Do you know its exact location?" The evil spirit nodded. "Naturally. It lies 50 Lai west of this section of the Great Wall. It should be very easy to locate." Fang Chen did not hesitate any longer and spoke decisively. "Sect Master Lei, this junior may be able to find sufficient war supplies, but I need a short period of time to confirm." Oh, Lei Zhenghai, who had been drowning in disappointment just moments ago, perked up abruptly, but when he heard it was Fang Chen speaking, his hopes were thoroughly dashed once more. Lei Zhenghai scoffed coldly. "This is no time for you to fool around." Fang Chen said, "At this critical juncture of the Great War, how would this junior dare to act recklessly? I am not fully certain yet. I need to go and test it first, if I truly find enough supplies." "I hope Sect Master Lei will honor your earlier promise." Seeing his earnest, confident demeanor, Lei Zhenghai's eyes flickered slightly as he said, "I will grant you 2 hours. If you find the supplies, the Lei Yan token will be lent to you on the spot. If you do not, I will not mete out harsh punishment to you. You will merely be the first to charge to the front line, to preserve your dignity." Fang Chen frowned. He would be punished even if he failed to find the supplies. What kind of absurd logic was that? If he simply refused to look for them at all, wouldn't he have no troubles to speak of? He instantly understood that this was Lei Zhenghai taking the opportunity to retaliate against him. His several prior acts of defiance had made Lei Zhenghai lose faith publicly, and this was a disguised form of revenge. After a brief moment of thought, Fang Chen nodded and said, "Very well, I agree." After all, even if he truly could not find the supplies, he would still have to go to the front line anyway. With the corpse army as boundless as a surging tide of demonic beasts, no disciple could hide safely in the rear. Charging first or last made no difference. No one could escape the coming battle. Like King Feng, when Hong Yao and Zhao Wuji all flew into a rage, Lei Zhenghai was clearly bullying Fang Chen unfairly. But they soon realized that if the supplies could not be found, all disciples would have to fight the demonic beast's head on anyway. Whether one was the first to charge or not no longer held any meaning. They then offered him their encouragement one after another. "Look for them if you can. It does not matter if you fail. I will charge out side by side with you when the time comes." Lai King Feng said with a long, heavy sigh. He could not bear to watch his 2 female disciples lose their husband right before his eyes, after all. Fang Chen cupped his hands in a salute and said, "Rest assured, respected elders." He then secretly asked the evil spirit for detailed information about the hidden storage space. After obtaining the exact location and entrance details, he was just about to set off. The evil spirit hesitated for a moment, then reminded him, "However, this space was designed by ancient sages. I am afraid it will not be so easy to enter, and there may even be hidden dangers inside." Fang Chen's heart sank slightly. He had already thought of this possibility. If it could be opened so easily, someone would have done so long ago. There must be a considerable level of difficulty to unlock it, and it may very well come with significant risks. Going alone would be somewhat unsafe. Getting injured or losing his life was a secondary concern. What was worse was that he might damage some of the magical artifacts he carried with him. If only he had a highly capable, resourceful person to act as his cannon fodder. No, a like-minded companion would be perfect. Fang Chen, at that very moment, a frantic, piercing scream drifted from far below Boundary Mountain. Its shrillness and the seething hatred laced within every note were so intense that they made the snow and ice covering Boundary Mountain tremble slightly. Everyone turned toward the source of the voice with odd expressions. It was a curvaceous woman in a wine, red long dress, charging over with murderous aura soaring to the heavens. Her elegant gown was stained all over with blood plasma and slime. Her originally sleek jet, black long hair clumped together in sticky matted chunks, her entire aura chaotic. The beautiful oval face that should have been gentle was twisted over with boundless rage, flames of fury shooting from her pair of peach blossom eyes. Ziakeoj quietly stepped over to Fang Chen's side, clicked his tongue, and asked, "Martial uncle, what did you do to her?" Liang Feiyan stared at Fang Chen with a weird look on her face. "She looks like she has a mortal vendetta against you. Junior brother Fang, don't tell me you lost control and did that thing to her." Fang Chen rolled his eyes at her and retorted, "If she let you touch her, would you dare?" Liang Feiyan thought of how malicious and cunning this woman was and couldn't help shivering. Then why was she acting like this? Fang Chen touched his nose guiltily and said, "It's nothing much. I gave her a tiny little gift. I just didn't expect she doesn't seem to like it very much." Under the stunned gazes of the crowd, Wu Manyue charged up Boundary Mountain full of murderous intent, showing not a shred of fear even when she saw the disciples of the Nine Sects covering the entire mountain. She shrieked in a frenzy, "Fang Chen, get out here. This lady is going to slaughter you." The crowd automatically parted, revealing Fang Chen's figure. The moment Wu Manyue confirmed it was indeed Fang Chen, it was the classic case of enemies meeting and seeing red. The spiritual power of the Golden Core 5th layer erupted from her in a roar, and without a single word, she drew a dagger and charged to attack. Before she could even get close, when Hongyao stepped in front of Fang Chen with a cold expression, her powerful spiritual force sending Wu Manyue flying back with a single shock. She glanced at Wu Manyue and let out a cold snort. "Disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, you dare to threaten the life of a Nine Sects disciple right in front of the elders of the Nine Sects. Who gave you the audacity to do this?" Wu Manyue stumbled and fell heavily onto the ground, her eyes reddening with grievance as she snarled, "Do you know what he did to me? He used me to lure away the demon tribe priest. I almost died at the hands of that priest. Do you think I don't deserve revenge?" When Hongyao looked back at Fang Chen with a stunned expression, Fang Chen gave a dry cough and said, "Elder Wen, esteemed elders of the Nine Sects. The matter is as follows. Senior Sister Wu accompanied me to capture corpse puppets, but we were discovered by the demon tribe priest. I took the initiative to carry the corpse diagram and try to draw the priest away, but for some unknown reason, that priest kept chasing Senior Sister Wu relentlessly. Now they say I used her to lure the priest away. I am completely wronged here. Have you no shame?" Wu Manyue scrambled to her feet in a rage when she heard this, striding furiously toward Fang Chen. "You wounded the demon tribe priest from afar. When you saw that he had memorized the aura of the puppet, you shoved the puppet diagram into my hands and made me chaste. How dare you say you are wronged?" Upon hearing this, not to mention the elders, even the disciples wore skeptical expressions. If someone said Fang Chen had shifted misfortune onto others, they might have half believed it, but claiming Fang Chen had wounded a demon tribe priest, that was far too absurd. When Hongyao's face darkened, and she snapped, "You are being unreasonably troublesome. Do you dare make this elder discipline you on behalf of your seniors? What kind of person is this? You can't just make up random excuses to pick a fight." Even Lei Zhenghai, I couldn't stand it any longer. He frowned and said, "Disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, cease this nonsense at once. If you have a genuine grievance, this sect will seek justice for you, but claiming that a junior disciple of my Nine Sects wounded a demon tribe priest is preposterous. Leave Boundary Mountain immediately. If you disturb the wartime arrangements again, this sect will punish you harshly." No one could possibly believe that Fang Chen could wound a demon tribe priest from afar, especially a demon tribe priest at the Golden Core 9th layer. It was obvious that Wu Manyue was slandering Fang Chen and deliberately causing trouble. Lai Qingfeng wore a hostile expression. "You Heavenly Secrets Pavilion disciples have caused enough trouble on Boundary Mountain. The corpse army is about to invade any moment now. This is no time for you to keep making trouble. Leave at once. Lu Ziyunian was also extremely fed up with the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion disciples. They were a bunch of troublemakers who had barely done any proper work, but caused endless problems. Now that they were at a moment of life and death, they were still pulling tricks to slander 9 sects disciples. It was simply outrageous. The numerous disciples who had suffered having their merit points snatched by Heavenly Secrets Pavilion disciples all glared at Wu Manyue furiously. They were sick and tired of these people, a bunch of good-for-nothings who only caused chaos. If they had that much skill, they could go to the demon tribe territory and kill a few demonic beasts instead of coming here to be a nuisance. They even had the audacity to twist the truth and slander their junior brother Fang. Get lost. Wu Manyue was furious to the point of exploding. Everything she said was the truth, yet no one believed her. Everyone thought she was slandering Fang Chen. She clenched her fists tightly, so angry that smoke seemed to be coming out of her head. What I said is true. That demon tribe priest said it himself. He was wounded from afar by Fang Chen using spirit, senior sister Wu. There may be some misunderstanding between us. Fang Chen quickly cut her off. Earlier I seized your puppet flag, even though I did it for the greater good. It was indeed improper of me. It is only reasonable that you bear a grudge against me. The crowd suddenly saw the light. No wonder Wu Manyue was slandering Fang Chen. This was the root of it all. This confirmed that Wu Manyue was indeed making false accusations. Wu Manyue was so angry that her chest heaved violently. She ground her teeth and snapped. Don't you dare try to quibble. Fang Chen said in a sincere tone, have I not already admitted that I was in the wrong first? Then let me compensate you. That should settle it. Wu Manyue laughed in rage. Compensate me with what? 50 demon cores that I will never get. Do you think I will ever believe you again? She no longer trusted a single word that came out of Fang Chen's mouth. Fang Chen spoke with an unchanging expression. No, you misunderstand. This is real, tangible compensation, given to you right here on the spot. Wu Manyue glared fiercely at Fang Chen, but ceased her shouts of murder and slaughter. She never held any real hope of killing Fang Chen in the first place. Setting aside the fact that she was no match for him at all, even if she were, with this bastard's cunning, he would undoubtedly cower behind his elders the moment he was outmatched. All her noisy commotion was, at its core, nothing more than a demand for compensation. Give me something I can actually believe, Wu Manyue snarled viciously. Fang Chen chuckled and said, earlier, Sectmaster Lei issued a bounty. Whoever locates sufficient strategic supplies will be lent the Thunder Evolution token for 1 month as a reward for their merit. Coincidentally, I know of a place that may hold such strategic supplies. I originally planned to hoard this merit for myself, but Senior Sister Wu harbors such deep misunderstandings of me, so I am willing to share this merit. When the time comes, we may both comprehend the mysteries of the Thunder Evolution token together. What? Wu Manyue looked at Lei Zhenghai in shock. Even her master had mentioned multiple times that Lei Zhenghai had once stumbled upon an incredible fortuitous opportunity, picking up a legendary Broken Thunder Evolution token that contained unfathomable Thunder Path cultivation methods. It was a pity she had never gotten the chance to see it. Now, Lei Zhenghai was actually offering it as a bounty to lend out. This made Wu Manyue's heart race with excitement. But having been tricked severely once before, Wu Manyue dared not easily buy into Fang Chen's crafty lies. She asked, what if we cannot find it? Fang Chen said, if we fail to find it, I will be assigned to be the first to charge the corpse army, dying honorably on the battlefield. You are only counted as my assistant, so no punishment will fall upon you. Wu Manyue's eyes darted back and forth. The implication was clear. If they found the strategic supplies, she could split this astonishing reward evenly. If they did not, Fang Chen would take all the blame alone, and it would have nothing to do with her. To be safe, she cupped her fists in salute to Lei Zhenghai and said, Sectmaster Lei, may I ask if what Fang Chen said is true? Lei Zhenghai answered without hesitation, this sect has indeed issued this bounty order, and Fang Chen has indeed accepted it. If he fails to find the supplies, he shall rightfully be punished. For you are not a disciple of my 9 sects, so you are not under my jurisdiction. If the search truly fails, no punishment will befall you either. Having gotten Lei Zhenghai's endorsement, Wu Manyue fully believed Fang Chen. One moment, her face was full of murderous aura. The next, it broke into a bright, charming smile. Since junior brother Fang has the sincerity to resolve the grudge between us, it would be far too ungracious of me to refuse. No matter whether this trip goes smoothly or not, all grievances between us are wiped clean from this day forth. This senior sister will never make things difficult for you over this matter again. Watching Wu Manyue's expression shift faster than turning the pages of a book, Zai Liushu, who had known countless women, clicked his tongue in wonder. No ordinary man can handle a woman like this. Only junior brother Fang can make her suffer such a heavy loss, Liang Feiyan said with schadenfreude, and now he's going out of his way to amuse her anyway. Fu Keijun, who had dealt with Fang Chen 3 times before, scoffed. How do you know junior brother Fang isn't planning to make her suffer an even worse loss? Xia Keoj nodded slightly. From what she knew of Fang Chen, if this were an easy task, why would Fang Chen ignore the people close to him and instead offer this benefit to an outsider? This trip was likely not going to be safe. Fang Chen dared not delay, lest Wu Manyue come to her senses, so he said, the bounty mission only lasts 2 hours, time is not abundant, shall we set off right now? Wu Manyue couldn't wait to make this trip happen, so she immediately circulated her spiritual power to clean off all the grime on her body, once again emanating a charming, vibrant aura. Her hot, curvaceous figure, beautiful, delicate face, and peach blossom eyes that looked so affectionate they could make even a spirit beast fall for her immediately left all the young disciples. Present dumbstruck, their souls drifting away, she swayed her hips, walking gracefully to Fang Chen's side, and intimately linked her arm through his, even pressing her chest against his arm lightly. Her breath was sweet as orchids, her gaze so alluring it seemed to stretch like silk as she cooed, Junior brother, this senior sister is relying entirely on you this time. This scene made all the male disciples present see red. Liang Feiyan gripped the precious saber at her waist, grinding her teeth as she said, I can barely hold back my 40-meter-long saber. Fu Keijun also lost his temper. Junior brother Fang might be setting a trap, but he was really getting all the advantages too, wasn't he? Amidst a sea of jealous gazes, Fang Chen rolled his eyes, quickly yanking his arm free, and sped off towards the western section of the Great Wall. Wu Manyue smiled meaningfully and immediately followed after him. A quarter of an hour later, Fang Chen stood at the location the evil spirit had mentioned. The city wall here was no different from any other section, with no visible oddities. Ordinary people passing by would never stop here at all. This is the place. I can already feel the faint spatial ripples. The evil spirit sighed softly and said, Brat, when you get the Thunder Evolution token later, don't forget to let me take a look too. I'm also curious what cultivation method is inside this Thunder Evolution token. Fang Chen nodded, no problem. Fang Chen asked, where is the entrance? The evil spirit said, see that protruding brick, press it in and this space will react, then the entrance will appear. It did not say any more, and Fang Chen immediately understood this was the time for the fall guy to make an appearance. Wu Manyue's movement technique was far slower than Fang Chen's, so it took her quite a while longer to catch up, panting heavily. She asked, is this the place? Wu Manyue looked around and could not help being confused. This place was completely empty, with no signs at all that it held hidden strategic supplies. Fang Chen said, I once read an ancient record. After the War of the Ancient Giants ended, the sages hid the remaining strategic supplies somewhere near this place. Let's search together for any clues. Whoever finds it first gets to study the Thunder Evolution token first. As he said that, Fang Chen immediately began quickly searching all around for suspicious mechanisms. Wu Manyue's spirit was roused. She was incredibly eager for the cultivation method on the Thunder Evolution token, and who got to look at it first was not just a matter of order. It was a matter of whether the person who came second would get the chance to look at it at all. What if Fang Chen looked at it first, then refused to hand over the Thunder Evolution token? What could she do? She couldn't beat him, and all the people nearby were Fang Chen's elders. She had to seize the upper hand first. She also immediately started looking around, her gaze sweeping hastily across the surroundings. Suddenly, she spotted a protruding brick in the wall. Compared to the other bricks, which were laid neatly with no gaps at all, so tight not even a blade could slip between them, this protruding brick looked extremely out of place. She was just about to walk over when her eyes darted. Wait, that's not right. A protrusion this obvious, how could Fang Chen not have noticed it after arriving so much earlier? Could it be that he detected some danger, deliberately pretended not to see it, and wanted her to test the trap for him? The thought crossed her mind. She sneered in her heart. Does he think I, Wu Manyue, am that easy to fool? Her bright eyes shifted, and she turned the tables on Fang Chen, saying, Oh, junior brother Fang, there's a protruding brick over here. Could this be the mechanism you mentioned? She wanted to see how Fang Chen would act. If he pretended to be shocked, but didn't dare step forward, that meant the mechanism was definitely dangerous. If he faked a rush to get there first, that was most likely also a trick to lure her into activating the mechanism. Either way, she would never fall for it. Hearing that, Fang Chen turned around sharply, his gaze following where Wu Manyue was pointing. A trace of joy flashed in his eyes, but he quickly hid it, saying casually, "It's nothing special, just a protruding brick." But his body was already subtly moving towards the protruding brick. That furtive, weasel trying to steal a chicken movement stunned Wu Manyue that was completely different from what she had expected. Could it be that Fang Chen really hadn't noticed this protruding brick earlier, and she had been overthinking? Her gaze shifted. She suppressed the surging urge within her and continued probing. "Oh, why do I suspect this is precisely the mechanism? Let me try." She stretched out her hand, reaching for the brick. At this moment, if Fang Chen retreated, it would be 100% confirmation that the mechanism was tampered with and Fang Chen had laid a trap. If he still rushed forward to seize it in an unhurried manner, that would also prove he was putting on an act. With a thunderous roar, before she could even react, the 5 magnetic origin mountain crashed straight toward her. Her vision suddenly went dark, and Wu Manyue was sent flying violently. She roared in shock and fury. "What do you think you're doing?" Fang Chen merely retracted the 5 magnetic origin mountain with a laugh and cupped his hands in salute. "My apologies, Senior Sister Wu. All is fair in war. I was the first to discover the mechanism." In that instant, his hand moved like lightning, slamming down toward the mechanism. Wu Manyue was stunned, so furious she wanted to slap herself. "Wu Manyue, you fool, you outsmarted yourself. You were clearly the first to find the mechanism, yet you handed the opportunity right to Fang Chen on a silver platter." The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she grew. How could she have done something so idiotic? Fang Chen was moments away from pressing the mechanism, while she had been sent flying over a dozen zhang away, far too late to contest the claim. Gritting her teeth, she swiftly took out a palm-sized jade figurine, marked with a drop of her essence blood on its forehead and her name carved on its chest. She hurled it with all her might, and the jade figurine smashed squarely into Fang Chen. A miraculous scene unfolded. The jade figurine actually transformed into Wu Manyue out of thin air, while the spot where Wu Manyue had been lying was now occupied by a jade figurine. Wu Manyue sneered coldly. "Apologies, but this senior sister was the first to discover this place." She channeled her cultivation power into her palm and sent the unsuspecting Fang Chen flying with a single strike, then immediately pressed down on the brick mechanism. However, what left her slightly stunned was that even though she had barely used any force, Fang Chen flew an astonishing distance. When she looked closely, she realized he was using a movement technique, retreating at extreme speed to put distance between himself, her, and the mechanism. Wu Manyue's heart skipped a beat. "I've been tricked." She tried to yank her hand back, but it was already too late. A sharp cracking sound rang out, followed by a terrifying destructive azure light with power equal to that of a Nascent Soul Realm cultivator. Sweeping outward in a radial pattern across 10 zhang of surrounding space, it appeared as quickly as it vanished, gone in less than a tenth of a breath, gone in a single flash. But Wu Manyue, who had been pressing the mechanism, disintegrated like burnt joss paper, turning entirely to fine ash that scattered in the wind. Fang Chen in the distance was shocked, cold sweat breaking out across his back. A nascent soul-level strike was actually this deadly. The evil spirit spoke with clear understanding. This mechanism was not built to kill enemies, but to prevent birds and beasts from accidentally triggering it and exposing the hidden space. If it were intended to slay foes, given the sage's power, the mechanism's might would be far greater than this. That may be so, but for the human cultivators of the Nine-Sex continent, this was an unimaginably dangerous mechanism. Fortunately, he had found a scapegoat. Otherwise, no matter how many tricks Fang Chen had up his sleeve, he would never have survived that strike just now. Crack! Suddenly, the small jade figurine in the distance, marked with the blood drop on its forehead and Wu Manyue's name on its chest, shattered abruptly. Amidst the shards, Wu Manyue's figure reappeared. Her face was deathly pale. She clutched her violently heaving chest and crouched on the ground, gasping for air. Fang Chen was not particularly surprised. This woman had managed to escape the pursuit of the demon race priest, which was proof enough of her extraordinary abilities. It was only to be expected that she would survive this ordeal. He clapped his hands and praised, "Senior Sister Wu's methods are truly extraordinary. This junior brother is full of admiration." Hearing this, Wu Manyue lifted her head sharply, drew her dagger, and charged straight at Fang Chen without a word, roaring, "You goddamned bastard. I knew you didn't invite me here with good intentions." Another one of her life, saving magical artifacts, was gone. This was a substitute puppet that was just as valuable as a spatial scroll. Fang Chen wore a faint, mocking smile as he took out the 5 magnetic origin mountain and said, "I failed to understand your words, Senior Sister Wu. You were the one who attacked and sent me flying just to seize the mechanism, so how am I the one with ill intentions?" Wu Manyue gritted her teeth so hard they almost shattered, charging forward to kill him regardless of the consequences. She could not explain all the scheming that had just transpired, but both she and Fang Chen knew perfectly well whether he had set a trap for her. Just as the two were about to clash, a low hum rang out. The city wall beneath their feet began to twist eerily, like ripples spreading across a calm lake as a small boat glides past. Then, from the twisting fabric of space, a pitch-black, lusterless opening appeared, surrounded by ripples of spatial power. It was unmistakably the entrance to that hidden space. Wu Manyue's face lit up with joy. There really was a hidden space left behind from the ancient era here. During that ancient Great War, all the myriad races had poured every resource they had into the conflict. Would the war supplies left behind be whirled, destroying treasures even by modern standards? Fang Chen stared at the dark entrance, muttering seemingly to himself, "I wonder if there are astonishing treasures inside. War supplies powerful enough to slay ancient giants could never be weak." After all, Wu Manyue, who had been brimming with anticipation just moments ago, instantly calmed down as if a bucket of ice water had been dumped over her head. Anyone else saying that would mean nothing, but Fang Chen muttering this aloud for her to hear. That was definitely a trap, a deadly snare. She gritted her silver teeth and snapped, "Bastard, you want to trick me into scouting the path again, in your dreams." With a sharp whoosh, she retreated a considerable distance backward in quick succession. So long as Fang Chen did not enter first, she would absolutely never venture deeper. Is there any need to act like this? Fang Chen felt rather speechless. Wu Manyue stood at a distance and huffed. He who has been bitten by a snake fears even a coiled rope for 10 years, and I have already been bitten by you twice. The thought of the lost jade figurine made her heart bleed again, and she wished she could slap herself across the face. Being swindled by the same person twice was simply the greatest humiliation of her entire life. Fang Chen said, "Fine, then wait for me outside." He immediately leaped into the pitch, black, lightless spatial opening. He did not guard against any mechanisms in the slightest. If the sages wished to bar outsiders from entering with their heaven, defying divine arts, outsiders would never even dream of finding the entrance in the first place. What need would they have to lay traps and harm people? The sages would never stoop so low as to sully their reputation like that. As expected, the moment Fang Chen leaped inside, there was no danger to speak of. Before his eyes was not endless darkness either. On the contrary, this pocket of space held an entire world of its own. Rows of candles, mounted on the stone walls, quietly illuminated the seemingly endless expanse of space. All manner of bizarre ancient war armaments came into view. Colossal long-range crossbows measuring a full 10 zhang in length, giant iron spheres studded with spiked barbs, as tall as an adult. Human, bronze war chariots bristling with sharpened blades, they stood silently on display, as if wordlessly recounting the tales of the ancient war that raged for an entire 60-year cycle. The moment his gaze fell on the candle flames, Fang Chen immediately noticed something amiss. The candle flames across the entire space did not stir in the slightest, nor did they flicker or dance at all, as if they had been painted onto the walls. Even the motes of dust floating in the air were frozen, suspended in the streams of light, as if embedded there for all eternity. The evil spirit extended its divine sense outwards and exclaimed in awe, "Truly a masterwork of the sages. They actually managed to freeze the flow of time within this entire spatial realm for such an unimaginably long span. It is hard to fathom just how overwhelmingly powerful the ancient giants were, to force these sages to spend an entire 60 years to claim victory, and a pihik one that..." Fang Chen suddenly came to a realization. This entire place was frozen in time stasis. What heaven-defying talent those sages who could wield such power must have possessed. Gazing at the sea of war armaments spread out before him, a strange glint flashed across his eyes. If I could bring all these war weapons back with me, I could wipe out the entire corpse horde with ease, even crush the entire demon clan without breaking a sweat. Even through the barrier of frozen time, he could feel the world, destroying aura exuding from these war armaments. The power unleashed by even a single one of them would likely be no weaker than that of a cultivator at the Nascent Soul Realm. These were all forged specifically to fight the ancient giants, after all. The terrifying strength of the ancient giants could be summed up in a single sentence. Even nascent soul cultivators were little more than food to them. To harm such existences, one would need attacks at the very least above the nascent soul realm level. If only it were that easy. The evil spirit side with a complex tone. These war armaments were forged by gathering the most masterful smiths from 10,000 races and using the highest grade of materials in existence. Every single one of them is at least spirit artifact rank. If I could have used weapons like these back then, why would I have lost my life fighting over a mere low-grade spirit artifact? Seeing Fang Chen fall deep in thought, the evil spirit sighed softly. A wisp of black mist surged out from the black mirror, weaving itself into a chain that stretched forward. The Space 3 Zhang Away rippled violently, as if the chain had struck some invisible barrier, but it did not stop the chain from penetrating deeper. In moments, the chain had wrapped itself around a towering Bronze War chariot. Fang Chen's breath hitched in his chest. A spirit artifact rank war armament, would he really obtain it this easily? The moment part of the bronze chariot passed through the invisible barrier, that section eerily disintegrated into green copper rust, while the portion remaining on the other side of the barrier was still as pristine as the day it was forged. As the chain continued to pull it out, the entire ancient bronze chariot slowly crumbled into a pile of copper rust right before Fang Chen's eyes. Do you understand now? The evil spirit let out a long, heavy sigh. Fang Chen was stunned for a moment before saying, "It's because of time." The evil spirit nodded, and the chain dissolved back into mist that flowed back into the black mirror. Time is the enemy of all things. No one can escape it, and no object can outrun it, while these ancient war armaments are perfectly preserved under the frozen time stasis that only applies within the bounds of this frozen realm. Once they enter the present mortal world, the thousands of years of time they missed will descend upon them in an instant. Fang Chen felt both shocked and thoroughly convinced by this explanation. If freezing time could grant eternal life, how would those sages have ever fallen into the dust of history? Even great cultivators with heaven, defying divine powers, cannot escape the ravages of time, so how could mere war armaments be exempt from the erosion of the ages? However, Fang Chen suddenly realized a problem, and a doubtful look crossed his face. Have you been to this place before? Judging by the evil spirit's demeanor, it was not the least bit unfamiliar with the scene before them. The evil spirit laughed heartily and said, "No, I have only been to other similar locations before." Fang Chen was taken aback. Are you saying there are other spatial realms that stockpile war armaments like this? The evil spirit spoke with profound meaning. Boy, do you think this stretch of the Great Wall was the main battlefield between the 10,000 races and the ancient giants back then? This place was nothing more than an insignificant tiny corner of that massive war. Judging by how intact the Great Wall is, not even a single proper large-scale battle ever took place here. What? This 10,000-lie-long Great Wall, the colossal behemoth that stretched across the border between the 9 sex lands and the demon clan's territory, was not even considered a main battlefield. The evil spirit said earnestly and sincerely, "Boy, focus on your cultivation as quickly as you can. The world is far vaster than you could ever imagine. The heavens and earth are far more boundless than what you have seen and known. With your talent, you should not be trapped in this tiny region forever." Fang Chen took a deep breath. Those few short words had sent massive waves surging through his heart. He nodded and said, "Thank you for your guidance, senior." This was the first time Fang Chen had ever regarded it as a respected senior. Before this, he had only ever seen it as a mere evil spirit. The evil spirit was slightly surprised. You regained your composure so quickly. Your mental fortitude is quite impressive. Mental fortitude was only one factor. More importantly, having once faced the threat of the Takesu ancient clan, he knew full well how vast the heavens and earth truly are. Fang Chen stared at the frozen cave abode ahead, which looked like a paused painting, and could not help but feel stumped. That being the case, even if there was wood inside, it would rot into dust under the erosion of time once taken out. He was somewhat confused as to why the evil spirit had been so adamant that there were wartime supplies stored here. Are you certain that 1,000-year-old wood would turn to dust? The evil spirit asked with a faint, sardonic smile. Fang Chen froze for a moment, then abruptly realized his mistake, smacking his forehead. I made a wrong assumption out of preconception. Dry wood lasts 1,000 years, waterlogged wood lasts 10,000, but wood kept in half. Damp conditions rots in just half a year. The air on the snowy plain is extremely arid. When these pieces of wood are taken out, even if they are immediately subjected to the weight of 1,000 years of dry conditions, they will only become drier, not rot. With that thought in mind, he scanned his surroundings and spotted a pile of lumber in the distance. He immediately activated the heavenly mountain silk, dragging a log out of the frozen space. In an instant, 1,000 years of time descended upon the log. The trunk, as thick as a grown man, shrank by a full circle at once, while countless cracks of varying sizes spread across its surface. When he touched it with his hand, the log shattered into pieces as if it were made of paper. The wood, dried by 1,000 years of time, had not rotted at all. Instead, it was even drier and more flammable, and surprisingly lightweight, perfect for use on the battlefield. The fuel he needed for this trip was now secured. Staring at the intangible barrier not far away, Fang Chen thought to himself, I wonder if a person can enter it safely. He took out a piece of clam meat, wrapped it with heavenly mountain silk, and tossed it to the other side of the barrier. After waiting for a moment, he pulled it back, only to find the meat as fresh as it had been originally, showing no signs of change despite the difference in time flow between the two spaces. You are as cautious as ever, I see. The evil spirit spoke with a look of approval. Go in without worry. If the frozen time here was dangerous, how would future generations have retrieved the wartime supplies once war broke out? That made sense, but Fang Chen was still cautious. He first stuck a single finger inside, testing if he could pull it back freely. Only after confirming there was no danger did he move back and forth little by little, stepping fully inside once he was completely certain there were no hidden risks. Staring at the endless ranks of war weapons stretching as far as the eye could see, he wore a look of deep regret. What a waste, so many precious treasures, and I can't take any of them with me. He spotted a chest of neatly arranged folding fans next to a giant ballista. Picking one up and unfolding it, a terrifying spiritual power fluctuation emanated from the fan, with faint layers of flame coiling across its surface. The evil spirit said with regret, that is the Phoenix Feather 9 flame fan, a top-grade spiritual artifact. It was once a devastating weapon used to slay ancient giants. When activated, it unleashes flames powerful enough to engulf entire cities with horrifying might. The Grandmaster Artifact Refiner who created this weapon fell during the Ancient War, and the refining blueprint was lost to unknown causes, leading to this artifact being lost to the ages. Who would have thought that this hidden space would stock an entire chest of unused ones? What a terrible shame. Back in the day, even a tattered, damaged Phoenix Feather 9 flame fans sparked a brutal battle between two Soul Formation Realm predecessors. If a complete one were to appear in the world now, the chaos it would cause is unimaginable. Fang Chen also felt a pang of disappointment. The space before him was a peerless treasure vault, yet it was like a mirage. He could see everything, but could not touch or take anything away with him. Unwilling to give up, he grabbed a large handful of the fans and tossed them into his heavenly thunderstone. He could not return empty-handed after all. Even if they turned to ash once he left, this trip would not have been for nothing. As he was grabbing the fans, Fang Chen noticed a crumpled scroll at the bottom of the chest, seemingly accidentally packed in with the folding fans in a hurry. He opened it and was instantly shocked. *detailed refining blueprint for the Phoenix Feather 9 flame fan *. Could this be the lost refining blueprint you mentioned earlier? The evil spirit sent over a wisp of divine sense, and upon seeing the scroll, let out a shocked cry as if he had seen a ghost. What the refining blueprint that was lost all those years ago is actually here. He extended two streams of mist that morphed into a pair of hands, holding the scroll and examining it over and over, crying out in excitement. That's right, that's exactly it. The materials required are impossibly rare, the forging process so complex. This is no fake blueprint. It turned out that when the artifact forging grandmaster of old, or his disciple, was packing the fully forged 9 Flame Phoenix Feather Fan, he accidentally mixed the blueprint in with the supplies. Before this crate of resources could even be opened, the war ended. Left undiscovered, it was abandoned in this hidden space for all the years that followed. The evil spirit was overjoyed. Boy, this trip was far from wasted. If I take this forging blueprint outside to sell, it will be more than enough to exchange for a high-grade medicinal pill that boosts Nascent Soul Realm cultivation, or a rare heaven and earth spirit treasure. As for you, trading it for a divine elixir that lets you break through to the Nascent Soul Realm will be no trouble at all. That valuable, Fang Chen immediately took out paper and ink and copied the blueprint down on the spot. If he encountered the right opportunity in the future, this blueprint might prove to be of unimaginable great use. Just as he finished copying, a faint, barely noticeable layer of silver light suddenly spread across Fang Chen's arm, with faint waves of spatial power flickering slowly across its surface. The evil spirit instantly snapped to alert. Get out of the way. Someone has planted a tracking mark on you. Fang Chen noticed it at almost the exact same moment. Without a single word, he directly shattered his sleeve, flinging that layer of silver light far away from him. But he was still a step too late. The silver light expanded with a sharp tearing sound, space rippled open, and Wu Manyue's graceful figure stepped out from within the rift. She moved as fast as lightning, snatching the *-detailed forging blueprint of the 9 Flame Phoenix Feather Fan * right out of Fang Chen's hand, then retreated several steps in a row. Clutching the scroll tightly, her face was full of smug triumph. Surprised, shocked. Wu Manyue wiped off the remaining silver light on her chest, pursing her red lips as she wore a playful, teasing smirk. Did you enjoy it when elder sister's chest brushed against you earlier? Only then did Fang Chen remember. When they set off, Wu Manyue had deliberately linked arms with him and purposely rubbed her chest against his arm. He had thought it was just her teasing him, but it turned out she had planted the tracking mark on purpose so she could seize treasures at the critical moment. Fang Chen laughed in anger. You really are something. You've been plotting against me from the very start. Wu Manyue was as smug as a fox that had just successfully stolen a chicken, laughing so hard her entire body shook. My surname is Wu, the same Wu in the saying the small which is nothing before the Great Witch, little guy, you're still far too inexperienced to play games with elder sister. With a soft, tinkling laugh, she unfurled the scroll leisurely. The moment she saw its contents, her pupils shrank to the size of pinpricks. She cried out in shock, a forging blueprint for a top-grade spirit artifact. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She was so excited she could barely speak coherently. We're rich. We're unfathomably rich, Fang Chen. You are literally elder sister's lucky star. The small losses I suffered earlier are nothing compared to the value of this blueprint right here. Fang Chen said calmly, take your time looking at it. I already finished copying it anyway, so the original blueprint isn't worth much anymore. Full of curiosity, he continued to explore the rest of the space. Wu Manyue immediately rolled up the scroll and stuffed it happily into her bosom. Then she looked around at the countless war weapons that emitted waves of destructive aura, saying in pleasant surprise, so many amazing treasures. Fang Chen, you haven't taken even a single one. Pausing for a moment, she suddenly realized something, a meaningful smile spreading across her face. What a shame. You don't have a spatial storage artifact, so you can't carry these bulky war weapons with you at all. Fang Chen turned his head, his gaze flickering slightly. Judging by your tone, it sounds like you have one. Wu Manyue giggled, waving her hand at a bronze chariot in front of her, and the chariot vanished into thin air. Spatial storage artifact. Fang Chen was taken aback. You really are full of hidden tricks. He knew Wu Manyue had many rare treasures on her, but he never expected she would even have a spatial storage artifact. This woman's karmic fortunes were far deeper than ordinary people could imagine. Wu Manyue made no attempt to hide her smugness. Ha ha ha, even the best spatial storage artifact wouldn't be able to hold so many amazing treasures if you hadn't brought me here, little junior brother. While teasing Fang Chen, she happily put away several more war weapons in a row. After stowing exactly 10, she finally ran out of storage space and had to stop with a face full of regret. The rest will have to be left for someone else. Wu Manyue sighed, her face full of disappointment. Fang Chen smiled meaningfully. Congratulations on your bountiful harvest, senior sister Wu. You can keep going. This junior brother will take his leave first. After circling the space once, he found there was nothing else besides the military supplies. It was time to notify everyone to come here and move the lumber. The amount of wood stored here was enough to sustain a 10-year war, more than sufficient to deal with the corpse army. Wu Manyue had still wanted to look around for more good things, but when she saw Fang Chen leaving, she was terrified he would set up a trap at the entrance and lock her inside. She could only stamp her foot in frustration and run after him immediately. The two returned to the city wall once more. As the frigid gale swept past, her wine, red long dress clung tightly to her form, perfectly outlining her bewitching, graceful curves that could ensnare souls. One could even faintly make out the texture of the threads, woven into her undergarment. Fang Chen glanced at her inadvertently, then immediately averted his gaze of his own accord. Wu Manyue smiled craftily. Far from avoiding suspicion, she even spun around gracefully and said, "Go ahead and look if you wish. You have done your senior sister a tremendous favor. You may gaze as much as you like." Fang Chen spoke with an impassive expression. Do not waste time. Hurry back to report our success to the higher-ups. Wait a moment. Wu Manyue's beautiful eyes flickered, and she drifted over trailing a sweet, intoxicating fragrance. She draped her slender, jade-like arm over Fang Chen's shoulder, but he hastily dodged out of the way. He said, "Do not come close. We are heading to a battlefield soon, not some hidden treasure vault." He was rather amazed by Wu Manyue's various spatial techniques. From the jade figurine to the silver light, her methods were unfathomable and mysterious. Staying far away from this venomous beauty was undoubtedly the right choice. Wu Manyue giggled coquettishly. "Relax, senior sister is not here to harm you. I want to ask you for a favor." Fang Chen's gaze shifted, and he immediately grasped her meaning, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "You hope I will keep the secret about your spatial storage device for you." Wu Manyue felt a headache coming on. Earlier, she had to store large items, so she had no choice but to reveal her spatial storage device in front of Fang Chen. But an item like a spatial storage device was not something a mere disciple should possess. If word got out, she would face enormous trouble, so she could only negotiate with Fang Chen to keep the secret. However, given how shrewd and slippery Fang Chen was, it was completely unrealistic to expect him to keep the secret obediently without paying any price. She bit her red lip slightly and said, "I will give you 2 battle weapons as your share. Keep the secret for me. What do you say?" Fang Chen folded his hands in his sleeves and said with a grin, "If I wanted them, I could go take them myself. How about this, Senior Sister Wu? I am very interested in that jade figurine you use. Earlier, give me one, and I will forget everything that happened today. Not a single word will leave my mouth." Wu Manyue said angrily, "You are taking advantage of my misfortune. You know how precious that thing is, do you not? It is a spatial magical artifact, and a life, saving one at that. You cannot buy it." "Something like that, no matter how many spirit stones you have." Fang Chen said, "Then I cannot guarantee that I will not let it slip one day." Looking at his brazen, rogue-like demeanor, Wu Manyue was furious yet helpless. How she wished she could defeat this detestable little bastard. After thinking it over repeatedly, she ground her teeth and said, "Fine, I agree, but you must keep the secret. Otherwise, I will become your sworn enemy for life." Under normal circumstances, even if her spatial storage device was exposed, she would never yield to such coercion. Because this kind of coercion usually repeats itself again and again, endlessly, it would be better to fight it out from the very start. But things were different now. There were 10 battle weapons inside her spatial storage device, and these items were far too valuable. She was unwilling to let them be exposed, so she could only swallow her anger and make a deal with Fang Chen. Fang Chen smiled and said, "Easy to say. As long as you do not tamper with the jade figurine, I will naturally keep the secret. This matter ends here. There will be no further demands from me." Wu Manyue snorted softly. It better be that way. Immediately, she took a jade figurine out of her bosom. She wiped away the 3 characters Wu Manyue inscribed on it, then used spiritual power to extract her blood essence from inside it. A clean, brand-new jade figurine was then tossed into Fang Chen's arms. Drop a single drop of your own blood essence onto it, then write your name on it using your heart blood. Before using it, activate it with spiritual power. You can swap positions with the jade figurine within a range of 20 zhang, allowing you to avoid imminent danger. But if you encounter a crisis that comes too fast for you to even react, the jade figurine will explode as your substitute. Do you have any more questions? Fang Chen recalled the scene where the jade figurine exploded earlier and was slightly stunned. By the sounds of it, this jade figurine could not only swap positions, but also take a fatal blow for him at the moment of life and death. It was far more useful than he had imagined. "Thank you, Senior Sister Wu." Fang Chen accepted it joyfully, immediately dropping a drop of his own blood essence onto it, carving his name onto it with blood, then stowed it away in his sleeve with extreme care. Wu Manyue watched with a twinge of pain in her heart. One of her few life-saving magical artifacts had just been cheaply given to this little bastard. However, she touched the spatial storage device in her hand, and her heart balanced out again. Losses come with gains, losing 1 jade figurine in exchange for battle weapons worth 100 times more. I still earned a huge profit. Thinking of this, a bright smile returned to her face. "Hurry and notify the others to come move the supplies. I will stay here to guard the place." Fang Chen nodded. He could not wait to leave anyway. If he stayed any longer, Wu Manyue would realize something was wrong. And so he hauled that log out of the black hole, flung it over his shoulder, and bolted at once. Watching Fang Chen fade into the distance, Wu Manyue stretched lazily, her heart and body both brimming with delight. This trip to the battlefield has been more than worthwhile. There is no need to fight for a spot on the merit list anymore. With so many war armaments in hand, why would I care about such trivial rewards? At this thought, she swept her divine sense over her spatial storage artifact with a face full of joy, ready to gaze upon her new treasures. After that single scan, her expression froze instantly. Her spatial storage artifact, which should have been stuffed to the brim, was completely empty. Only a pile of copper rust, iron rust, and all manner of fine powder remained. The war armaments were nowhere to be seen, and that precious blueprint had vanished without a trace, even more completely. "Where have my things gone?" Wu Manyue was dazed, suspecting that her eyes were playing tricks on her. She swept her divine sense inside once more, only to get the same result. Had her spatial storage artifact malfunctioned and destroyed all of them? Wu Manyue would rather doubt her own senses than believe the war armaments and blueprint were flawed to begin with. Fortunately, there are plenty more inside. Wu Manyue hurriedly leaped into the black hole, collected another 10 war armaments, and scanned them into her spatial storage artifact. They were intact and unharmed, so her hanging heart finally settled. "That scared me half to death. It is fortunate there are so many more war armaments here." Wu Manyue let out a long sigh of relief. She lifted her steps and headed back the way she came. When she crossed that invisible barrier, her sharp eyes spotted a pile of copper rust lying on the ground, identical to what had been in her spatial storage artifact earlier. An ominous premonition rose once more in her heart. When she swept her divine sense over her spatial storage artifact, the war armaments that had been perfectly intact a moment ago had all turned into copper and iron rust. Glancing at the rust on the ground, her heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly turned back, pushed a war chariot over, and the moment it crossed the invisible barrier, it instantly turned into copper rust. With a heavy thud, Wu Manyue collapsed onto the ground, her legs giving out beneath her. She finally understood. Items from this place could not be taken to the outside world. They would inevitably rot and crumble the moment they left. This was why Fang Chen had not coveted any of the items here in the slightest, and why he had not stored the scroll away after obtaining it, choosing instead to copy it by hand. He had long since discovered that nothing from this place could be taken outside. Wu Manyue, on the other hand, had been smug and self-satisfied, convinced she had stumbled upon a heaven, defying opportunity. Kept completely in the dark, she had been played for a fool, and Fang Chen had even extorted a jade figurine from her. When she realized the truth, Wu Manyue flew into a blind rage, letting out a hysterical, broken scream, Fang Chen, PFFD. Her fury finally seared her heart, and she spat out a mist of blood. Immediately after, her vision went black, and she fainted on the spot. When she woke again, she found herself lying on the back of a spirit beast, tended to by 2 female disciples from the 9 sects. She shot upright abruptly, looking like a ravenous tiger ready to tear its prey apart. Where is Fang Chen? Where is Fang Chen? One of the female disciples was frightened by her appearance and said weakly, Junior Brother Fang is on the Boundary Mountain, making preparations to fend off the army of undead. She made to get up at once, only to discover that her hands and feet were bound to the spirit beast's back with iron chains. What is the meaning of this? Wu Manyue exclaimed in shock. Have I become a prisoner? The other female disciple said nervously, Senior Sister Wu, Junior Brother Fang, did this for your own good. He said you were hunted by demon clan priests repeatedly and injured while searching for war supplies. You have suffered far too much, so you must be sent back to Sunset City to recuperate. You cannot be allowed to risk your life further on the Boundary Mountain. Send me back to Sunset City. He is just afraid I will seek him out to fight to the death. Wu Manyue gnashed her teeth in rage. She shook the chains and said, Tying me up is also for my own good. The 2 female disciples nodded. Junior Brother Fang said you are impulsive by nature and would definitely ignore all dissuasion to return to the Boundary Mountain, so he had no choice but to have you bound and sent back. For my own good, Wu Manyue wished she could beat Fang Chen to death on the spot. She laughed in fury. He forbids me from going back. I will go back regardless. Do these trivial chains actually think they can trap me? Never in her life had Wu Manyue suffered such a crushing defeat, let alone repeated humiliations one after another. She swore an oath that she would never let this grudge go unavenged. But the moment she struggled to move, a wisp of toxic smoke drifted over. She inhaled just a single breath, and her eyes immediately rolled back as she fainted dead away. A female disciple's voice, brimming with apology, reached her ears. My apologies, Miss Wu. Junior Brother Fang said that if you refused to cooperate, we were to knock you unconscious with poison. We are truly sorry for this. As Wu Manyue slipped into unconsciousness, she clenched her fists tightly, snarling silently, Fang Chen, you have guts. Atop Boundary Mountain, Fang Chen glanced at the receding spirit beast. The 2 disciples riding it were dispatched by Lei Zhenghai to return to Sunset City and call for reinforcements, and were to bring Wu Manyue back with them as an additional task. If she remained here, Fang Chen would have to constantly guard against her retaliation. Furthermore, Lei Zhenghai and the sect elders feared she might perish on this mountain, which would leave them unable to account for her loss to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Thus, the moment Fang Chen proposed sending her to Sunset City, Lei Zhenghai and the elders all readily agreed. Sect leader Lei, would this junior be considered to have completed the bounty request? Fang Chen asked as he approached Lei Zhenghai. Lei Zhenghai glanced at the mountain, pile of lumber, and could find no excuse to refuse even if he wished to. He could only reluctantly take out the Thunder Evolution token and warned, you may comprehend its mysteries for a maximum of 1 month. Not a single extra day will be permitted. Fang Chen cupped his fists in salute and said, Many thanks, Sect Leader Lei. With that, he held the Thunder Evolution token reverently and stepped aside to examine it. Lei Zhenghai scoffed silently to himself. Do you truly think this sect's Thunder Evolution token is so easy to comprehend? To fathom the secrets of the Thunder Evolution Token, one must first have cultivated a Thunder Path cultivation method. To an outsider like you, it is nothing more than a useless jade plaque. What's more, this sect has studied it for countless years and only managed to grasp the most superficial of insights into the technique of incarnating as thunder and teleporting. In a mere month, what could a little disciple like you possibly hope to learn? He appeared generous on the surface, but in truth, he had no fear whatsoever that anyone could comprehend the cultivation method sealed within the Thunder Evolution Token. Fang Chen found a quiet corner and stared intently at the strange token, which was partially broken and had flickering thunder arcs coursing within its depths. The evil spirit also extended its divine sense out of extreme curiosity to study the token alongside Fang Chen. But the moment it sent its divine sense probing into the token, a bolt of thunder arc from within the token struck viciously into the mirror the evil spirit resided in. The evil spirit sucked in a sharp breath of pain and snapped, "How is this just? I am not even allowed to look at it." Only then did Fang Chen remember that the evil spirit was a foul, baleful entity, and this token contained a Thunder Path cultivation method, which was completely incompatible with its nature and not something it could peek at. "You can hardly blame me for this, can you?" Fang Chen said with an amused chuckle. The evil spirit, having been utterly rebuffed, grumbled and cursed. "What a lousy broken token. This old man doesn't even care for it. Don't you get cocky either, brat. I may have wasted my effort. But you won't fare much better. Without me helping you analyze it, you will never be able to comprehend the cultivation method in the Thunder Evolution Token." With that, it withdrew its divine sense in a huff. Fang Chen smiled faintly. Up until this point, he had never encountered a cultivation method that he was unable to comprehend. He immediately turned his gaze back to the Thunder Evolution Token. There were no characters or any similar markings within the token, so where exactly was the so-called cultivation method hidden? Staring at the flickering thunder within, Fang Chen fell into thoughtful consideration. A wisp of thunder emerged from his palm and was injected into the token. Immediately, the previously dormant thunder within the token burst like beans in a hot pan, crackling and flashing wildly before intertwining to form a flickering, unstable cultivation method text. High-tier Earth-grade cultivation method, *6 sections of heavenly thunder, shadow among clouds*. Fang Chen's pupils constricted sharply. This was actually a high-tier Earth-grade cultivation method. As he continued reading carefully, Fang Chen grew even more astonished. When all 6 sections were combined, its power rivaled that of a heaven-grade cultivation method. Fang Chen did not even possess a heaven-grade cultivation method yet. The only one he had access to was stored on the ancient void tree, and he could only obtain it once he broke through to the Nascent Soul Realm. The *6 sections of heavenly thunder * before him was truly astounding. Separated, it was high-tier Earth grade, but combined, it reached heaven grade. This was a cultivation method originating from the 10,000 Calamity Temple. He had originally only wanted to learn an additional Thunder Path movement technique, but by accident, he had stumbled upon such a shockingly extraordinary divine art. He read on ravenously, only to discover to his slight regret that *6 sections of heavenly thunder, shadow among clouds * was an incomplete art, likely due to the token being broken. Only 2 layers currently remained. Once the first layer was cultivated to perfection, one could incarnate into a teal thunder shadow, moving anywhere within 100 zhang range in an instant. When the second layer was cultivated to perfection, one could ride the purple firmament lightning, covering any distance within 1,000 zhang in a single roaring dash. The missing third layer was even more incredible. It allowed one to bind the thunder of the 9 heavens into a dragon form and teleport to any location within the range of one's sight. Fang Chen was secretly shocked. What sort of concept was teleporting to the very limit of one's field of view? Even a great nascent soul realm cultivator, flying through the air, would take quite some time to reach that distance. It was a pity that the third layer was lost. Even so, the first 2 layers were already extraordinarily formidable. If he had cultivated the first layer back when he was being hunted by the demon clan priest, there was no way she could have kept up with him. He would have lost her without a trace after just a few flashes of movement. After memorizing the contents of the cultivation method, Fang Chen sat cross-legged to comprehend its profundities. An hour later, a spark of insight dawned on him, and he immediately began his cultivation. At this moment, the army of corpses advanced rapidly. Growing tremors could already be felt across Boundary Mountain. With time running out, he could only advance as far in his cultivation as his current limits allowed. An hour later, Boundary Mountain shook violently as if struck by a catastrophic earthquake. The ice and snow covering its slopes could not bear the strain, triggering a colossal avalanche. Fang Chen was forced to cut his cultivation short. In the short span of an hour, he had only grasped the most superficial layers of the technique. He could now transform into a bolt of thunder, appearing 50 zhang away in an instant to catch enemies off guard. This ability could not be used repeatedly, however, as it consumed an extraordinary amount of thunder power. The thunder power stored in his meridians was only sufficient for a single activation. Unless he cultivated the specialized cultivation method designed to absorb heavenly thunder, which would allow him to store an endless supply of thunder power in his body for daily use, such repeated activation was impossible for now. A deafening, rumbling roar echoed through the air. Fang Chen's expression shifted as he gazed into the distance. The dense, tide-like horde had already reached the foot of Boundary Mountain. He drew a deep breath. The great battle was finally upon them. Lei Zhenghai's booming voice resounded across the entire battlefield at this moment. Elders and disciples of each sect shall form separate units. The 4 sects of True Thunder Sect, Grand Supreme Sect, 10,000 Swords Sect, and Giant Sect shall hold the main Boundary Mountain position. Heavenly Sound Sect and Joyous Union Sect shall guard the left flank of Boundary Mountain. 1,000 Refinements Sect and Spirit Beast Sect shall guard the right flank. Azure Cloud Sect shall remain in the rear, on stand, by at all times. The Corpse Army was primarily targeting Boundary Mountain, but there was no ruling out the possibility that some demonic beasts adept at climbing or even flight would cross the Great Wall from other regions. Thus, personnel must be deployed to guard both the left and right flanks of Boundary Mountain. In addition, a portion of combat strength must be held in reserve to immediately fill in the gaps should any sect fail to hold their position. The elders and disciples of Azure Cloud Sect generally had relatively weak combat strength, making them the most suitable candidates for reserve support. After a brief analysis, the elders of the various sects accepted the arrangement, immediately gathering their respective disciples to prepare for battle. Fang Chen nodded slightly. Though Lei Zhen, I was an unpleasant man when Yi Kengyuan dispatched him to command the front lines, aside from some personal connections. Lei Zhen, I's unquestionable talent for military formation and troop deployment was also a key factor. Gazing at the vast, surging corpse army, Fang Chen's heart clenched slightly. The outcome of this battle, life or death, was impossible to predict. Martial Uncle, Zia Keoj suddenly ran out from the chaotic crowd, hurriedly untying the sachet from her waist. Take this, Martial Uncle. Open it at a moment of life. Threatening crisis, and it will save your life. Fang Chen was stunned for a moment, then firmly refused. You are on the main battlefield. You need this life. Saving treasure far more than I do. How can you give it to me? As a disciple of the Grand Supreme Sect, one of the top 3 sects, Zia Keoj would face the main force of the Corpse Army. In contrast, Fang Chen was temporarily stationed in the rear. It went without saying who needed this item more. Zia Keoj, however, shoved the sachet into Fang Chen's arms, her gaze clear and resolute. You have helped me so much, Martial Uncle, and I have never had the chance to repay you. The chances of survival in this battle are slim. If I do not repay you now, I will have to wait for my next life. Only if you take this, Martial Uncle, can Keoj fight without distractions. Fang Chen suddenly felt the weight of the sachet in his arms. He stopped being formal and took out 2 spirit replenishing pills and 2 rejuvenation pills. Take these as well, then. Zia Keoj's eyes lit up. Both of these were divine treasures on the battlefield. The first could replenish 80% of her spiritual power, while the second could save her life even if she only had one last breath remaining. With a battle of life and death looming ahead, she did not stand on ceremony and accepted them with a smile. Thank you, Martial Uncle. Additionally, Fang Chen took out the demon tribe priest's necklace, tore a crystal from it, and solemnly placed it in her palm. When you encounter danger, crush it. This item will protect you for a short time. When the demon tribe priest was targeted by the purple sword assassination attempt, she relied on this crystal to temporarily strengthen her body and avoid being killed. It could be considered a decent life-saving item. It was clearly a woman's belonging. Zia Keoj took it, sniffed the faint lingering fragrance on it, and a look of confusion crossed her face. Fang Chen found her reaction amusing. It belongs to the demon tribe priest. If you don't like it, you can give it back to me. Zia Keoj clenched her palm shut, quickly putting the crystal away, and winked playfully. It's a gift from Martial Uncle. Why would I not want it? At that moment, the urging voice of Lu Ziyunian came from the distance. Zia Keoj's expression tightened. She gazed deeply at Fang Chen and cupped her hands in salute. Martial Uncle, please take the greatest care of yourself. Fang Chen also replied with a solemn expression. You too, take care. The two gazed at each other before parting ways, with barely 200 human cultivators facing the countless thousands of the corpse army who could guarantee they would survive until the end. Afterwards, Fang Chen found Liang Feiyan, Ao Yongjun, Zai Liashu, and Yi Lingxing, giving each of them 2 spirit replenishing pills and 2 rejuvenation pills. Having known each other for some time, Fang Chen did not want to hear news of their deaths. He would help them as much as he could. Junior brother Fang. As Fang Chen was saying goodbye to them, Fu Keijun called out to him with a complicated expression on his face. Glancing at the medicinal pills in the hands of the others, he looked back at Fang Chen with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. Junior brother Fang, could you also give me a rejuvenation pill? I am willing to trade something for it. He began rummaging in his robes, trying to find something of sufficient value. But no matter how valuable his possessions were, could they compare to the worth of a rejuvenation pill? As early as 2 months prior, rejuvenation pills had become divine treasures in Sunset City. The 10,000 Swords sect held 2 of them, and even the strongest cultivators of the various sects had failed to trade for one no matter what price they offered, let alone a mere disciple like Fu Keijun. Looking at his flustered, awkward expression, Fang Chen waved his hand to stop him. No need, I will just give you one. He took out a rejuvenation pill and tossed it to him. Fu Keijun hurriedly caught it, his expression growing even more complicated. His past interactions with Fang Chen had been far from pleasant. He had originally thought Fang Chen would refuse to trade no matter what, and that he would only embarrass himself by asking. But Fang Chen had asked for nothing in return, and given him one for free, leaving Fu Keijun overwhelmed with mixed feelings. He wore a look of shame. Junior brother, all the mistakes of the past were my fault. Please do not take them to heart. Fang Chen smiled lightly. Has that not long passed? Senior brother Fu, take care and stay alive. The 2 exchanged a glance, and all past grudges and grievances melted away in this very moment. Fu Keijun's eyes reddened slightly as he said, You too, junior brother, take care. A thunderous roar drowned out his final words. Fang Chen immediately returned to the ranks of the Azure Cloud sect. Lai Qingfeng, Zhao Wuji, and Wen Hongyao led over a dozen disciples, standing solemnly on the high ground overlooking the entire battlefield. Lai Qingfeng swept his gaze across the disciples and spoke sternly, When it is our Azure Cloud sect's turn to enter the fray, I, as your elder, will be the first to charge. If I fall, Elder Zhao will take my place. If Elder Zhao also perishes, Elder Wen will follow. If all 3 of us elders die, the senior brothers among you shall lead the junior brothers and sisters into battle. If the senior brothers fall, the senior sisters shall lead the rest. If only one of you remains, you must grip your blade tight, hold your sword fast, and strike down the enemy. We of the Azure Cloud sect may be weak in strength, but our bones shall never bend. These solemn, stirring, and passionate words rang out like great bronze bells, even amid the muffled thunder, like roars of the demonic beasts, shaking the very soul of every disciple present. They understood that when the time came for the Azure Cloud sect to take the field, at least one entire sect's elders and disciples would have already fallen, and the situation would have reached its most critical juncture. If they did not hold the line, the human forces would surely be crushed. They had to fight. They had to block the demonic beasts at all costs, to seize the last sliver of hope for the outcome of the Great War. Fang Chen wore a solemn expression as he stepped out from the crowd of disciples, taking out bottle after bottle of Kai replenishing elixirs and spring return elixirs. Fellow senior brothers, senior sisters, I have been part of this sect for half a year, and I have received nothing but your kindness and care all this time. Today we face this catastrophe together, sharing life and death. I have no other gifts to offer, so I present each of you with 2 spring return elixirs and 2 Kai replenishing elixirs. I hope we may win this battle, and even more so that we may all see each other again when victory comes. At these words, under the shocked gazes of everyone present, Fang Chen distributed the spring return elixirs, divine treasures famous across the lands of the 9 sects, and the equally precious Kai replenishing elixirs into their hands one by one. Lai Qingfeng was deeply moved and said, Fang Chen, you did not have to do this. This was originally the responsibility of the 3 of us elders. Pre-battle rewards and mobilization are duties we ought to fulfill, yet you have done this on our behalf. Fang Chen replied, The 3 elders are far too kind. In this battle, we share life and death, so what need is there to draw lines between us? I only hope my meager contribution can add a sliver of chance to our victory, and grant my fellow senior brothers and sisters a little more hope of returning alive. 3 elders, you should each keep 2 as well. Fang Chen distributed 2 spring return elixirs and 2 Kai replenishing elixirs to each of the 3 elders. After this round of distribution, the 100 spring return elixirs and Kai replenishing elixirs he had once refined were almost completely exhausted, with fewer than 10 left. He could only hope these items would play their part in the coming battle. Rumble. At this moment, Boundary Mountain shook violently. 100 colossal mammoths, each 50 zhang tall, marched in neat formation, lined up in a single row, and slammed into Boundary Mountain with all their might. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed, and the Great War had officially begun. Everyone looked towards the foot of the mountain, where the rotting corpses of demonic beasts spread like a black tide, stretching from the base of Boundary Mountain all the way to the edge of the heavens and earth. At this hour, the sun dipped below the horizon at dusk, the last ray of afterglow between heaven and earth flickering faintly among the clouds, casting the world now in deep shadow, now in brief light like a dying flame in the wind, struggling and striving with all its remaining strength. It sent the last wisp of blessing to the humans standing guard atop Boundary Mountain. Finally, the afterglow faded entirely, and the earth sank into boundless, endless darkness. Advancing towards them were wave after wave of demonic beast corpses, as massive as mountains, stretching as far as the eye could see. Fang Chen had brought back living corpses earlier, so they were already fully mentally prepared for the arrival of the corpse army. However, when they saw at close range the endless, grotesquely shaped, rotting corpse army marching towards them through the darkness, everyone still could not help but feel a chill rise in their hearts. Fear, like a ferocious beast that hunts under the cover of night, pounced towards them in the darkness. Rumble Boundary Mountain shook once more, triggering a massive avalanche across its slopes. Everyone raised their eyes to look and saw the 100 mammoths lined up in a perfect row, once again slamming their colossal bodies into Boundary Mountain with all their force. Their skeletons had become brittle from years of decay. After the previous impact, most had already cracked, and a few had even had their heads completely smashed off in the collision. But they still retreated 100 zhang before launching another charge, slamming into Boundary Mountain without any regard for their own destruction. This bizarre behavior left the people on the mountain peak completely confused, unable to fathom their purpose. Lei Feng and Lu Ziyunian, who had been guarding this location for many years, looked at the avalanche erupting across Boundary Mountain, thought for a moment, and suddenly realized the corpse army's intention. Stop them quickly. Lei Feng shouted at the top of his lungs. They want to shatter the ice and snow covering Boundary Mountain to expose the jagged rock slopes beneath, making it easier for the corpse army to climb. Boundary Mountain has been battered by wind and frost for 1,000 years, and its surface has long been covered with a layer of smooth, slippery, solid ice. Only demonic beasts adept at climbing, such as apes and spiders, can easily leap up Boundary Mountain, while all other demonic beasts face immense difficulty climbing its slopes. The corpse army before them are all dead demonic beasts, and their agility is far inferior to what it was when they were alive. If they wished to ascend the Boundary Mountain, the smooth sheet of ice covering its slopes was the first obstacle they must overcome. The demon tribe priestess was clearly a capable commander, having laid out her plans well in advance. Without hesitation, she deployed 100 colossal mammoths to shatter the ice layer first, no matter the cost. In doing so, the jagged, angular stone slopes beneath would be exposed, allowing the corpse army to scale the mountain with ease. A sharp glint flashed across Lei Zhenghai's eyes as he ordered decisively, "Slay them all." He made the first move himself, pulling out a length of charred black wood that was unmistakably thunder-struck wood. It contained the remnant power of heavenly lightning left within when the wood was struck by a heavenly tribulation. He circulated his cultivation method, drew forth the thunder power from the thunder-struck wood, and aimed it at one of the colossal mammoths. Asterisk crackle. Asterisk thunder burst forth instantly, condensing into a bolt of purple lightning as thick as a finger. It pierced through the void in the blink of an eye and struck the colossal mammoth. In an instant, vast amounts of death chi steamed out from the mammoth's body. As the death chi dissipated, the colossal mammoth crumpled to the ground with a thunderous crash without even letting out a shriek, crushing the mammoth beside it under its weight. The elders of the various sects pulled out fire talismans one after another, while others directly unleashed flame-type cultivation methods, all launching attacks toward the 100 colossal mammoths in unison. As Fang Chen had stated earlier, these walking corpses were fiendish entities that harbored extreme fear of Yong-aligned objects. When flames landed on their bodies, the death chi within them was immediately seared out. The ignited mammoths panicked and rammed into their kin nearby, setting those alight as well. The mere 20-something flame attacks ended up igniting over 30 colossal mammoths in total. The firelight that soared to the heavens illuminated not just the battlefield, but also the eyes of all the people gathered at the mountain peak. Seeing that the walking corpses were not invincible, the disciples of the various sects were greatly inspired. They lit the pre-made torches, one after another, and hurled them toward the foot of the Boundary Mountain. Most of them lacked sufficient strength, unable to throw the torches over 100 zhang. The torches fell across the slopes at varying distances. The small number with enough strength hurled their torches directly into the mammoth herd, successfully igniting another one of the beasts. But this did not stop the disciples from continuing their attempts. Thanks to Fang Chen, they had more than enough wood stockpiled, an inexhaustible supply that would never run out. Each torch streaked across the night sky like a falling meteor, leaving behind arcs of light of varying lengths. The 100 colossal mammoths charging at the boundary mountain finally could not withstand the saturated onslaught of torches. When they launched their fifth charge against the boundary mountain, the majority of the mammoths had already been set alight, collapsing to the ground one after another. The less than a dozen remaining mammoths were already badly mangled from ramming against the mountain, no longer capable of launching effective strikes against the boundary mountain. At the center of the corpse army, atop the back of an unassuming demonic beast, the demon tribe priestess stood with her hands behind her back, watching the movements at the boundary mountain from afar. A flicker of surprise crossed her cold, beautiful face, using flame to counter my corpse army. This is that human brat's doing. She had led the corpse army to invade on this campaign, with only the demon emperor aware of her plan. The operation was sudden and swift, leaving no opportunity for the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion to gather intelligence, with the sole aim of catching the human defenders completely off guard. That damned human brat captured a corpse puppet ahead of time, alerting the human defenders on the boundary mountain early. Based on the characteristics of that corpse puppet, they had already devised a number of countermeasures. If not for that, the 100 colossal mammoths alone could have easily cleared the ice off the boundary mountain, after which the corpse army would have surged up the slopes and ended the battle in one swift strike. I will slaughter you with my own hands. The very thought of Fang Chen's face filled the demon tribe priestess with unquenchable rage. Watching the 100 colossal mammoths burn one after another, no significant emotion showed in her eyes. She issued her command indifferently, advance. Squeak, squeak, squeak. From the army of corpses, skeletal rats the size of farm dogs suddenly burst forth, nothing but bone left of their forms, with roiling wads of black smoke pulsing in their eye sockets. Their numbers were staggering, totaling well over 1,000. They moved at blistering speeds, nimbly leaping onto the smooth slope and scrambling upward at a frantic pace. Do not let them draw near, Lei Zhenghai once again drew a strand of thunder from his thunderstruck wood, blasting it straight into a demonic rat charging at full speed. With a wet squelch, the death kai in the demonic rat's eyes scattered, and it immediately went limp as if its soul had been snuffed out, tumbling a few times before lying motionless on the ground. Seeing this, the elders and disciples of the various sects did not dare hesitate, all launching attacks at once. For a moment, flames once again soared into the sky, illuminating the entire snow-covered slope. Compared to the barbarian elephants, these demonic rats were far weaker. Even a brush of flame immediately stripped them of their ability to move. In barely the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, corpses littered the snow slope, demonic rat remained strewn as far as the eye could see. Aoyong Jun was panting heavily, his eyes glinting with rampant excitement as he jeered, "Come on, sending a pack of tiny rats up here, are you looking down on us?" The disciples, who had been on tenterhooks this entire time, let out a sigh of relief, mixed with excitement, after claiming a string of small victories. They all began to think the corpse army was not nearly as terrifying as they had imagined, that suppressing them with fire was no challenge at all. Fang Chen stood at a high vantage point, gazing down at the ground carpeted with demonic rat corpses, his brows furrowed tightly. There was no sense in sending such weak demonic rats to their deaths. That demon clan priest did not strike him as a fool. One demonic rat that had fallen near its companions caught Fang Chen's eye. The area had been dimly lit before, so he had not noticed it. But only now did Fang Chen see that a fist-sized beast hide pouch was strapped to the demonic rat's abdomen, bulging full of some unknown contents. As the demonic rat died, the beast hide pouch was rapidly dissolving. Looking at the rest of the demonic rat corpses, every single one, without exception, had a similar beast hide pouch strapped to their bellies. Fang Chen's expression shifted drastically, and he immediately called out in warning, "These demonic rats all have objects strapped to their bellies. Hurry and clear away their corpses." The real threat is not these rats themselves, but the unknown beast hide pouches at their abdomens. Only then did the crowd abruptly notice the abnormality on the demonic rat corpses. Lei Zhenghai's face fell, and he decisively swept both his sleeves, sending out waves of powerful fierce wind that hurled the several demonic rat corpses in front of him all the way down to the foot of the mountain. The other elders also acted at once. Some simply unleashed their spiritual power, while others took out magical artifacts resembling plantain fans, a single wave of which summoned what looked like a tornado. The great elder of the Tianian sect even coordinated with his disciples to launch a series of sound waves, sweeping all the demonic rat corpses downward in one go. The snow slope was smooth, so with only a small amount of force from the people above, the demonic rat corpses slid all the way down without stopping. However, they had only cleared half of them when the beast hide pouches dissolved one after another, strands of unknown black liquid eating through the pouches and dripping onto the ice surface. The ice could not withstand the corrosion, quickly melting into scalding water that took out an entire small patch of surrounding ice along with it. Identical scenes played out all across the snow slope. Patch after patch of ice melted, triggering a chain reaction, asterisk crack. Asterisk under the crowd's anxious gazes, a bone-chilling cracking sound rang out from within the snow slope's ice layer, making their hearts sink. The ice layer had broken, asterisk rumble. Asterisk, without the slightest warning, the ice covering the lower half of the boundary mountain suffered a massive collapse, cascading down to the foot of the mountain like a raging flood. The enormous impact even turned the countless shards of broken ice into a moving river of ice, which surged all the way from the mountainside into the corpse army, crushing hundreds of corpse puppets, forcing the entire army to retreat repeatedly and sowing widespread chaos. Yet none of the people gathered atop Boundary Mountain could muster even a hint of a smile, for all the ice below the mountainside's midpoint had vanished, exposing impenetrably hard permafrost and rough stone surfaces that allowed demonic beasts to climb as easily as if they walked on flat ground. Within the ranks of the corpse army, the Yao clan priestess furrowed her delicate willow brows. Could it be that some peerless expert has arrived among the human defenders? If someone had not promptly directed the clearing of the rat demon corpses, all the snow and ice covering Boundary Mountain slopes would have been completely wiped away by now, and my corpse army would have been able to charge straight into your stronghold unimpeded. Even half a slope is enough. We will fill this final stretch with corpses if we have to, until it is completely leveled. She plucked the butterfly hairpin from her hair and blew softly into it. The low, resounding horn note struck like a war hammer, spurring the tidal wave of the corpse army to launch a ferocious assault on Boundary Mountain. The first to charge up the slopes were colossal beasts whose size was second only to the barbarian elephant. Their massive frames trod easily over the hard rock and permafrost, surging upward at startling speed, each step shaking the very earth to its core. The crowd, who had only just won a string of small victories moments prior, now wore expressions of utmost gravity. Lei Zhenghai was the first to strike, roaring loudly, "Kill, do not let them reach the top." This final half of the slope is our only natural barrier. If the corpse army crosses it, we will be forced into close quarters combat, and our casualties will rise exponentially. Elders and disciples from all sects immediately hurled all manner of torches and talismans, and even unleashed fire-type cultivation methods, doing their utmost to slaughter the corpse army at the foot of Boundary Mountain. But their numbers were far too vast, and the demonic beast corpses at the very front were colossal in size and saturated with death kai. Ordinary torches took a long time to fully incinerate the death kai clinging to them. No sooner had these corpses fallen than the hordes behind them stepped on their remains to continue charging upward. The battle between the two sides was exceptionally fierce. Elders and disciples of the 9 sects poured all their strength into hurling torches and talismans, and casting fire, attributed cultivation methods downward. The corpse army, meanwhile, felt no pain and feared no death, surging upward in an endless tide. The fighting raged for a full hour. The half slope, measuring barely a few hundred zhang in length, was already littered with more than 2,000 corpse puppets of all sizes. Yet when one lifted their gaze, the sight that greeted them sparked a flicker of despair. The corpse army still stretched as far as the eye could see, an unending flood that seemed impossible to exterminate. To make matters worse, the remaining half of the smooth ice slope began to pile high with the remains of corpse puppets. The corpse army behind stepped on these remains to continue climbing upward, and when they fell in turn, they became additional stepping stones for the hordes coming after them. The situation was growing dire. At this critical juncture, Lei Zhenghai roared, rolling logs. Elders and disciples from all sects immediately hauled over whole, full-length logs, set them ablaze, and hurled them down the smooth slope. The scorching, flame-wreathed rolling logs immediately thundered down the slope, igniting the corpse army in their path. Log after log came cascading down in an endless stream. The corpse puppets that had managed to climb halfway up the mountain were either burned alive by the flames or sent flying backward by the force of the falling logs and cascading corpse remains. The Yao clan priestess frowned. Where had they gotten so much lumber? This was a 10,000 lie snow wasteland after all. When the humans first began throwing torches, she had thought little of it, assuming Boundary Mountain held a small stockpile. But after fighting for this long, not only had their supply of lumber not run out, it had only increased. Even if Boundary Mountain were piled full of lumber, it should have been exhausted by now, should it not? Just who is this expert commanding them? Flickers of battle, intent danced in the Yao clan, priestess's eyes. Very well, let us see who outlasts the other. Once we take Boundary Mountain, all of you will die here. Charge onward. At her command, the corpse army once again rumbled forward to assault Boundary Mountain. Countless rolling logs trailing thick black smoke incinerated corpse puppet after corpse puppet as they charged. The corpse puppets, however, were utterly fearless of death, stepping over mound after mound of corpses to continue their upward assault. The two sides were locked in a bitter tug of war, grinding away at each other's strength. By midnight, most of the sect elders were visibly fatigued, while the disciples were deathly pale, many suffering from cramping limbs as they hurled rolling logs on mechanical autopilot. Half a full night of constant battle had taken a massive toll on their physical strength. Zia Keoj wiped the sweat from her face. Her peerless, beautiful features were streaked black and white with soot, making her look like a calico cat. Gasping for breath, she lit another rolling log and pushed it down the slope. Liang Feiyan's hair was disheveled. His sleeve had burned off at some unknown point, exposing his armpit. He kicked a burning rolling log down the slope, paying no mind to the sole of his boot melting from the heat, and immediately moved to light the next one. Every single person was pushed to the brink of exhaustion, yet none could afford to stop. The hundreds of Zhang snow slope was now piled high with mountains of corpses, with not a trace of ice or snow left visible. The corpse army had advanced to within 50 Zhang of the summit. Some of the larger corpse puppets could already reach the humans defending Boundary Mountain. Fortunately, their endless supply of rolling logs had allowed them to hold fast to the 50 Zhang line. To the defenders' great relief, the previously endless corpse army finally showed a limit after half a night of relentless slaughter. Though they were still dense and countless, if they could keep holding their position, they still stood a chance of victory. The Yao clan priestess watched the battlefield silently, growing increasingly furious at the staggering losses her corpse army had suffered. Where in the world are they getting all this lumber? Just the mountain assault phase has already cost me 40% of my corpse army. Preposterous. Watching the humans cling stubbornly to the final 50 Zhang of the slope, intent on dragging the battle out, she snorted coldly, "Do you think I would let you get your way? It is time to end this." At her command, a series of soft popping sounds rang out from the corpse army. Groups of corpse puppets, the size of a human head, suddenly flapped their wings and took flight. They were corpse puppets made from demon bees, all covered in lethal venom, and their numbers exceeded 1,000. They took to the air like a roiling dark cloud, gliding silently over the summit of Boundary Mountain. Lei Zhenghai sensed something was amiss, his face shifting drastically. Beware, flying demonic beasts, but his warning came far too late. The disciples, who were fully focused on fending off the beast tide, had noticed nothing amiss. One male disciple from the 10,000 Sword sect, who was holding a rolling log aloft, suddenly let out a miserable scream. A gigantic, rotting demon bee had driven its jet, black stinger deep into his neck. Though he was at the 9th layer of the Foundation establishment realm, he only had time for one scream before his entire body turned black. He then collapsed straight to the ground, and the burning rolling log in his hand fell onto his own body, rapidly incinerating his corpse. Junior brother Liu, Liang Feiyan cried out in shock, darting over and kicking the rolling log away to smother the flames on his body. But when he picked him up, he found the man was already bleeding from all 7 orifices, his life completely gone. Junior brother, Liang Feiyan roared in grief. Seeing the demon bee that had stung him trying to escape, he struck back with his sword and sliced it to pieces. The bursting blood of the demon bee splattered directly toward his face. In a flash, Fang Chen arrived just in time, flicking his sleeve to catch all of the corrosive blood. His sleeve was left riddled with bloody holes from where the blood had melted through the fabric. "Calm down, senior brother Liang," Fang Chen said. Liang Feiyan's pupils constricted slightly, and he cupped his fist in a salute toward Fang Chen. "Thank you, junior brother Fang," he said, his voice thick with a sob, his eyes reddened. The disciple before him was his junior martial brother, both personally tutored under the sect master. He was a gentle, refined man, and word had it his family had arranged a betrothal for him to a dignified, soft-spoken noble young lady, with their wedding scheduled for the coming spring. But he would never live to see that day. "You beasts!" Liang Feiyan set his body down, eyes bloodshot, and furiously slashed at a demonic bee attacking a female disciple of the Hehuan sect. "You won't even give me a chance to save him. Why?" Fang Chen stared deeply at junior brother Liu, sighing silently in his heart. This is the face of war. Junior brother Liu was the first to fall, but he would not be the last. Rage burned like wildfire in his chest. He drew the Aishuang sword from his back and slashed at a stray demonic bee not far away. Frigid ice power not only tore the beast apart, but also froze its corpse and splattering blood solid, preventing it from spraying onto nearby cultivators. Scenes just like this played out across the entire boundary mountain. The sudden ambush of venomous demonic bees had completely thrown their formation into disarray. The cultivators were busy frantically slaying the demonic bees, leaving too few personnel to hold back the horde of cadavers. By the time Lei Zhenghai realized how dire the situation was, it was already too late. The beast tide had crossed the final 50 zhang of ice, and massive, towering forms emerged right before them. Eyes beware, Lei Zhenghai roared out a deafening warning. But with demonic bees swarming from above and corpse puppets charging from the front, they had no way to guard against every threat, and their battle line was on the verge of total collapse. Fang Chen's face shifted drastically. The tide of battle had turned so abruptly for the worse. If their line broke, their defeat would be as unstoppable as a landslide. No, he could not let the beast tide surge up the mountain. He had to buy the rest of the cultivators time to regroup, or all would be lost. As he watched several corpse puppets stepping across the last stretch of smooth ice to climb up the mountain, a flash of inspiration struck Fang Chen, followed by a flicker of hesitation. After a moment of gritting his teeth, he decisively took out his purple sword. He rubbed his hands together, and the purple sword whirled out at extreme speed, not aimed at slaying the corpse puppets, but at cutting through the ice at the junction of the peak and the slope. In the blink of an eye, the incomparably sharp purple sword carved a long, deep crack across the several hundred zhang wide slope. Immediately after, Fang Chen summoned the 5 magnetic primordial mountain, letting it swell with the wind until it was the size of a small hill. Using his soul power, he lifted it 10 zhang into the air before slamming it violently down onto the ice surface. A thunderous roar echoed out, as loud as the impact of 100 ferocious elephants ramming into Boundary Mountain, and a massive earthquake shook the entire snow slope. The severed upper section of the ice could no longer hold its weight, and it collapsed and slid down from the crack, dragging the dense horde of demonic beast corpses with it. It rolled down the several hundred zhang snow slope like a raging flood, crushing everything in its path. Whether it was ordinary corpses or corpse puppets, all were swept away by this avalanche of ice and snow, careening down Boundary Mountain and surging forward rapidly. It crushed 500 to 600 more corpses along the way, only finally coming to a halt right at the feet of the demon clan priest. The frigid wind, carrying the stench of countless rotting corpses, blasted toward the demon clan priest. Her face was frozen with cold rage as she stared at the devastated battlefield and the now cleared snow slope, unbridled fury blazing in her eyes. Good, very good. So you dare pull such a trick, do you? Excellent command. This priest shall come meet you in person. Rumbling, the remaining 5,000-strong cadaver army charged toward Boundary Mountain with no further obstacles. With the smooth ice surface gone, the rolling logs the defenders had prepared could no longer slide all the way down, getting stuck halfway up the slope. After losing half of the cadaver army, the demon clan priest finally reached a position where she could engage the human cultivators guarding Boundary Mountain in direct combat. By this point, the cultivators had finally eliminated all the demonic bees. Thus far, only Liu Wan, Feng of the 10,000 Swords sect had fallen, while the rest were largely unharmed. The few dozen injured had only been splashed by the demonic bees' blood while slaying them. Fortunately, Wen Hongyao, who was highly skilled in healing, was present, and she treated their wounds immediately. Aside from a handful who were too severely injured to recover instantly, the rest were still fit for battle. The cultivators all breathed a sigh of relief. The situation just now had been far too dangerous. If the ice had not suddenly collapsed and swept away the cadaver army, they would have been caught between two enemies, and the consequences would have been unthinkable. Lei Zhenghai crushed the last demonic bee under his foot, then turned his head to glance deeply at Fang Chen in the distance. While others were unaware, he had seen everything clearly. At the final moment, it was Fang Chen who had cut through the ice and saved the entire battle. He had also clearly seen the items he used. One was a mountain that could expand in size, and the other was the purple sword that the giant sect had been searching for, the very same weapon that had killed Tai Bubai. Lei Zhenghai's gaze flickered. He calmly withdrew his eyes and looked toward the vast, surging cadaver army at the foot of the mountain, which now had nothing blocking their path. They surged violently toward the mountain peak. Lei Zhenghai took a deep breath and roared loudly, "The real battle is upon us. Elders and disciples of all sects, hold your lines firmly. We fight to the death." With that, he struck first. 10 pieces of thunder-struck wood were arranged before him, each brimming with stored lightning power. The cultivation method of the true Thunder sect cannot generate lightning on its own. It must borrow the lightning power of heaven and earth. The amount of external lightning power available directly determines the strength of their cultivation. These 10 pieces of thunder-struck wood had been specially brought by him for this battle. Lei Zhenghai's sharp gaze spotted a cold-faced young girl standing with her hands behind her back on the back of a demonic beast, half hidden by the flickering firelight. He immediately guessed her identity, the demon clan priest. Lei Zhenghai flicked his finger, and the 10 bolts of lightning merged into a single beam as thick as a man's arm, which streaked across the sky in an instant and slammed toward the demon clan priest. Her face shifted, her form blurred, and she vanished from her spot instantly, barely evading the attack with a sharp whoosh of air. All the corpse puppets within 100 zhang of the spot where she had been standing had their death energy shattered by the blast, and they all collapsed motionless to the ground. Thunder Dao! She clutched her aching right arm. Even though she had dodged in time, she had still been grazed by the lightning's aftershock, and her right arm was burned to a bloody pulp by the electricity. You are the commander, and also that bastard's master, aren't you? That bastard also mastered Thunder Dao, and he dispersed the death energy of my 9-headed giant python. I heard that only disciples of the true Thunder sect among the 9 sects are skilled in Thunder Dao, so you, the commander before me, are without a doubt that bastard's master. Lei Zhenghai frowned slightly. He was indeed the commander, but what was this about being that bastard's master? He put the matter aside for the moment. Now that the demon clan priest had shown herself, it meant the duel between the 2 commanders had officially begun. Take another strike from me. Lei Zhenghai drew lightning power from the thunder, struck wood, and blasted it across Boundary Mountain toward her. The demon clan priest subconsciously touched her neck, only then remembering that her necklace had been stolen by that bastard, but she did not panic in the slightest. With a flicker of her thought, a massive corpse puppet beside her soared into the air and threw itself directly at the incoming lightning bolt. As the thunder light blazed violently, the corpse puppet exploded into countless fragments, which scattered across the ground and burned. That is the extent of your petty tricks. She stamped her foot, and the corpse puppets at her feet charged towards the peak of the Boundary Mountain alongside the vast army. The mountain slope, covered entirely in frozen soil and boulders, could no longer stand as an obstacle in their path. Carrying the demon tribe priest on her back, she effortlessly ascended to the midpoint of the mountain. Meanwhile, the vanguard of the corpse army had already reached the edge of the mountain peak. Lei Zhenghai roared in a deep voice, "Hold the Boundary Mountain." He himself summoned a vast surge of thunder power, blasting it directly towards the demon tribe priest. With a single thought from the demon tribe priest, several corpse puppets immediately moved to block the incoming thunder power. At the same time, she flicked her sleeve, and a massive Inkai Death Kai shot into the sky, swelling with the wind to form a colossal head measuring 10 zhang across. It emitted a bone-chilling howl before abruptly lunging towards Lei Zhenghai. Lei Zhenghai's expression shifted drastically as he summoned multiple bolts of thunder power, striking the colossal head simultaneously. A series of dull thuds rang out. The Death Kai within the colossal head was incredibly dense, and even such formidable thunder power failed to pierce through it. With a thunderous crash, the colossal head opened its maw and dove down, aiming to bite Lei Zhenghai viciously. This is bad. Lei Zhenghai hastily dodged, and the ground was instantly shattered into pieces by the colossal head's impact. The 10 pieces of thunder-struck wood he had arranged on the ground were also all blown away in the explosion. His complexion paled. The cultivation methods of the True Thunder sect rely entirely on drawing upon the thunder power of heaven and earth to unleash their full might, and thunder-struck wood is a common item used by True Thunder sect disciples to store thunder energy. The pieces that had just been blown away were all the thunder-struck wood he had brought with him. At the same time, the corpse army arrived at their position. The elders and disciples of the 4 great sects guarding the Boundary Mountain had no choice but to engage the corpse puppets in direct combat. The first to bear the brunt of the assault was the Grand Supreme sect. Lu Ziyunian and 2 other elders stood at the forefront, while disciples including Xia Keoj, Hua Zhangchen, and Lai Shiqian stood behind them, landing finishing blows on weakened enemies through gaps between the elders. A serpent demonic beast at the 5th layer of the Golden Core realm charged ahead of all others, cutting through the horde of corpse puppets to reach the front lines first. Its house-sized massive head rammed violently towards Lu Ziyunian, who stood in the center. Spiritual power gushed forth from Lu Ziyunian's palms. Combining it with an earth-grade cultivation method, he unleashed a palm strike that roiled the air and was almost solid enough to touch. With a deafening boom, the rotting head of the undead giant serpent was instantly pulverized. The remaining force of the palm strike also sent the corpse puppets flanking it crashing to the ground in a half-moon pattern. This single strike fully displayed the terrifying might of a cultivator at the 7th layer of the Golden Core realm. The elders on either side and the disciples behind them were all invigorated by the display. The air erupted with a violent, shrill ringing sound. The decapitated giant serpent, its skeleton body stretching dozens of zhang long, suddenly lashed out with its tail. Caught off guard, Lu Ziyunian and the 2 elders were sent stumbling backwards, knocking over several Grand Supreme Sect disciples in their path. "Bastard beast," Lu Ziyunian roared, furious and shaken. "Smash it into pieces. Let's see if it can still move then." One elder immediately moved to follow his order, but the other elder stood rooted to the spot, completely motionless. Drops of blood gushed from the center of his forehead, trickling past the corner of his eye, sliding down his nose, and finally winding down to his chin, where they merged into a thin crimson streak that splattered onto the ground between his feet. Lu Ziyunian turned to look, his old eyes shrinking to pinpricks. There was a bloodied hole as thick as a rolling pin in the center of the elder's forehead, piercing clean through to the back of his skull. Through the hole, Lu Ziyunian could see the terrified, shocked faces of his disciples. In the earlier strike from the serpent's tail, a sharp bone spur had pierced clean through his skull. Lu Ziyunian's face drained of color. In his disbelieving gaze, Lin Zhen slowly collapsed onto the frozen snow ground, his eyes half open, reflecting the pitch black night sky devoid of starlight and moonlight. He never got to see the dawn, falling forever in the moments before the first light of day broke. Lu Ziyunian roared in bitter grief and rage. His junior brother, whom he had stood beside for countless years, had fallen abruptly by cruel chance. Wrath and sorrow gnawed at his soul, but self-reproach burned hottest in his chest. If he had not been so careless, Elder Lin would never have perished. Whoosh, the colossal serpent tail lashed out once more. Consumed by overwhelming grief and fury, Lu Ziyunian roared, "Die." Terrible spiritual power and overbearing palm force instantly shattered the sneak, attacking serpent tail into countless shards of bone. Within the serpent's belly, a dimly flickering mass of death, Kai seized control of a remaining jagged bone spur, writhing as it attempted to strike again. With a sharp cracking sound, a heavy boot stomped down hard, eradicating both the bone spur and the death Kai entirely in one blow. Lu Ziyunian charged down the hillside, his eyes bloodshot. Fixing his gaze on the onrushing beast tide, he rushed forward to meet it, roaring, "Damned fiends! All of you deserve to be wiped out." Disciples, including Zia Keoj, Hua Zhang, and Lai Shiqian, also had red, rimmed eyes. Elder Lin Zhen had always been the kindest to disciples, even going out of his way to care for those from other peaks. Yet he had died so suddenly, with no warning. Hua Zhang's eyes burned red. He roared as he charged forward, taking up Elder Lin Zhen's post, and furiously struck at a wolf demon that had attempted to sneak attack Lu Ziyunyan's flank. Zia Keoj and Lai Shiqian filled the gap left by Lu Ziyunyan one after another, striking at the pouncing demonic beasts with unbridled rage in their hearts. This grim scene was far from isolated. Members of the 4 sects, who had never faced corpse puppets in direct combat, were hit with a devastating shock the moment battle was joined. These corpse puppets retained full calm, at prowess even after their heads were crushed or their entire bodies were shattered to pieces. With no experience fighting such foes, their defensive line was broken through immediately. The worst losses were suffered by the giant sect. Already at a disadvantage in close quarters combat, they were caught off guard when a leopard demon missing half its body broke through into the crowd of disciples behind their front line. Its body was covered in sharp bone spurs that sliced like scythes, wounding 8 disciples. 2 more were struck in vital spots and died on the spot. Vile beast, by the time the elders arrived and beat the leopard demon into fine dust, the disciples had already suffered catastrophic casualties, with over half losing their combat ability instantly. The 10,000 Swords sect fared no better. Earlier, suppression from Yong, aligned, righteous powers like flame and thunder had given them the false impression that these corpse puppets were easy to defeat. Only when they clashed head on did they realize how troublesome these foes were. They felt no pain, feared no death, and even survived having their bodies torn apart. In a single exchange, the 10,000 Swords sect's defensive line was forced back repeatedly by several massive corpse puppets. 3 disciples were injured by flying bone shards, and 1 even had a finger cut clean off. Liang Feiyan struck out furiously, with streaks of sharp sword Kai, slicing the corpse puppets into pieces, yet the shattered bone fragments continued to attack without pause. To make matters even more dire, before the corpse puppets in front of them could be fully dealt with, another wave of corpse puppets pounced from behind. The only sect holding on slightly better was the True Thunder sect. Wave after wave of thunder strikes from their elders and disciples struck the corpse puppets, dropping them to the ground instantly, unable to move. However, as the defensive lines of the three adjacent sects were pushed back one after another, corpse puppets appeared on both flanks of the True Thunder sect and launched attacks against them. Surrounded by enemies on three sides, even the True Thunder sect could not hold out. One elder, who had rushed to save a disciple, had his heart ripped out by a bony claw. Even Lei Zhenghai, who had been fighting in a blood-fueled rage, was forced to retreat back to the mountain peak. They fought as they fell back, with the beast tide pressing ever closer. The situation was collapsing, and total annihilation loomed at any moment. Sectmaster Lei, think of something fast. The defensive line is about to crumble. Lei Zhenghai was dazed. He had never imagined that the corpse army, which they had easily wiped out by half earlier, would shatter the human defensive line in a single clash. If things continued this way, total defeat was all but guaranteed. What was worse, with the enemy army closing in, they would not even have a chance to flee. Just as he too was at a loss for what to do, a clear, loud voice suddenly rang out across the entire battlefield. Attack their death, Kai. That is their only weak point. Fang Chen stood on a high vantage point overlooking the entire field, taking in the battle situation of the four great sects in full. The other three sects had been hacking the corpse puppets to powder with no effect, yet the True Thunder sect only needed to destroy the Death Kai with their thunder, and even completely intact corpse puppets would drop motionless on the spot. This was more than enough proof that Death Kai was the core that powered their movements. This was hardly a new discovery. Whether from their earlier experiments on small demonic beasts or the subsequent burning of the corpse army, they had already observed that once the Death Kai in these corpse puppets was evaporated, they lost all ability to move. It was simply that in the heat of their first direct battle with the corpse army, they had been too tense, focusing solely on fighting the corpse puppets, and had forgotten that their only weak point was the Death Kai. That single shout was like a wake-up call for all the stunned combatants. In the direction of the 10,000 Swords sect, a horde of ferocious, rotting wild boars was charging straight for them. They came barreling forward with overwhelming, unstoppable momentum. The three elders of the 10,000 Swords sect did not strike immediately, instead searching for the Death Kai inside the boars. Though these were all corpse puppets, the location of their Death Kai varied. Some had it in their heads, some hid it beneath their spinal bones, and others simply concealed it deep within their bones. Liang Feiyan also locked onto one boar demon, spotting a ball of Death Kai in its eye socket. She charged forward immediately, driving her sword into the eye socket. The powerful sword Kai instantly shattered the Death Kai, and the wild boar collapsed to the ground with a thunderous crash. Liang Feiyan was filled with elation and excitement, roaring, "Come on, all of you, come at me." Seeing this, the crowd was invigorated. They all abandoned their random, haphazard attack strategies, focusing all their strikes on the Death Kai inside the corpse puppets, and the effect was far better than they had expected. The corpse puppets that had been so impossibly difficult to deal with moments earlier, that had inflicted such heavy casualties on them, fell easily as their Death Kai was destroyed one by one. The crumbling defensive line, under the combined counterattack of the elders and disciples, gradually began to reform and hold fast. Watching the horde, one upper hand they held being gradually evened out, the demon clan priest glared furiously at the person who had issued the warning. The other party stood atop an ice pillar, arms crossed over his chest, closely surveying the battlefield. Though young, he exuded an aura of unshakable calm and composure. When she clearly made out his features, the demon clan priest's beautiful eyes flew wide open, and rage erupted from her. "Bastard, it's you." Even if Fang Chen were burned to ash, she would still recognize him. Hearing that, Fang Chen looked across the distance at her and waved with a smile. "Long time no see, you shameless demon clan priest." That was hitting exactly where it hurt. The demon clan priest seethed with rage, growling, "Don't get cocky. Once we conquer the boundary mountain, you will be the first I slaughter. I will cut out your tongue, chop off your claws, and hack off your dog head." Remembering how many times she had suffered humiliating losses at Fang Chen's hands, she was so furious she could barely breathe. Fang Chen gazed at the steadily turning tide of battle, a faint smile playing on his lips. "We'll talk about that once you actually manage to charge up here." The demon clan priest clenched her delicate fists tightly and snarled. "Fine, you want to be arrogant. Then I'll kill your master first to collect a little interest." Immediately after, she turned her icy glare on Lei Zhenghai, high, thick, suffocating Death Kai surging beneath her robes. "Sect Master Lei, you have raised quite the outstanding disciple. I, Yeyu, have never suffered such a humiliating defeat in my life. I will settle this score first with you, his master." Lei Zhenghai froze for a moment and said, "Are you talking about Fang Chen? Since when has he ever been my disciple?" Yeyu ground her teeth in rage. "Stop quibbling. He wields the power of the Thunder Path. If you didn't teach him, did a ghost teach him? Die." Amidst a roar, the Yin-Kai billowing in her sleeves let out piercing howls, before transforming into dozens of demonic wolves that lunged straight for Lei Zhenghai. Looking at Yu, who seemed determined to fight him to the death, Lei Zhenghai was so frustrated he wanted to spit blood. You fucking got the wrong person. How the hell would I be the master of that little bastard Fang Chen? But since she was determined to kill him, he had no choice but to steel himself and face the fight. Immediately, he took out several talismans brimming with powerful thunder force with a pained expression. After tearing one open, a bolt of lightning shot forth, which he guided with his hand seals to blast at the oncoming horde of wolf demons. One was clearly far from enough, so he reluctantly sacrificed all of his talismans at once, sending wave after wave of thunder force crashing towards the horde of Deathkai wolf demons. P50, P50, P50. The thunder force, far more powerful than that of lightning, struck wood, dispersed over half of the Deathkai, but a small amount still broke through and slammed into Lei Zhenghai's chest. An ordinary person would have had Deathkai invade their body and be killed instantly from that blow, but thunder light permeated the surface of Lei Zhenghai's body, and a net of lightning erupted from his flesh, shattering the Deathkai. It turned out he was also wearing a close, fitting soft armor, imbued with thunder power, which allowed him to narrowly escape with his life. Lei Zhenghai was both shocked and enraged. Demoness, if you want to fight, this sect master will give you a proper battle. With extreme reluctance, he took out a round, smooth iron rod hammer, within which roamed wisps of thunder aura. The power of that thunder aura was so strong that even Yu, who stood far away, showed a look of wariness on her face. Tribulation lightning. Unlike the ordinary lightning from before, this iron hammer contains heavenly tribulation lightning, which is 10 times more powerful than regular thunder force. But there's only residual thunder aura left now. What can it do to me? Though Yu said that, she still quietly ordered several corpse puppets to step forward and block in front of her. Lei Zhenghai snorted coldly. This much thunder aura might not be able to do anything to you, but have you noticed the weather right now? Yu lifted her head to look at the night sky. The starlight had vanished, and the crescent moon was nowhere to be seen. She frowned slightly, not understanding what he meant at first. Immediately after, her face paled drastically. Why, you're going to summon heavenly tribulation lightning. The sun and moon losing their light can only mean one thing. The sky is covered by dark clouds. Right now? Lei Zhenghai laughed loudly. When the sun set at dusk earlier, clouds already covered the sky. I knew then that the heavens are still on the side of us humans. The cultivation methods of my righteous thunder sect are at their strongest when heavenly thunder roars. Now that there are dark clouds, I only need a tiny bit of thunder aura to summon thousands of thunderbolts. Demoness, you are finished. Amidst his loud laughter, he raised his arm and was about to hurl the iron rod hammer in his hand into the cloud layer. Yeyu's face changed drastically. Throwing all caution to the wind, her eyes immediately glowed, and a tangible soul dagger shot out in an instant. Almost immediately, Lei Zhenghai suffered a severe soul injury, clutching his head and roaring in agony. The iron rod hammer in his hand also slipped from his grasp. A nearby corpse puppet, under Yeyu's control, took the opportunity to lunge forward, attempting to seize it. Just as its claw was about to wrap around the iron mace, Xing, a sharp sword kai flashed past, piercing precisely through the death kai of the corpse puppet. Immediately after, a figure darted forth, one palm firmly closing around the iron mace. When she clearly saw who had made the move, Yu was instantly enraged beyond control. Fang Chen, it's you again. Her eyes blazed with fury, her dainty fists clenched so tight that her nails dug into her flesh, yet she did not notice it in the slightest. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and said, I was already on guard against your soul attacks long ago. Others might not know, but he had personally experienced this woman's soul assault techniques. Thus, when Lei Zhenghai was about to hurl the iron mace, he had already been wary. As expected, the tribulation lightning drawn by the iron mace posed too great a threat to Yeyu's corpse army, forcing her to no longer dare hide her soul attack methods. You bastard, Yeyu was mad with rage, drowning in immense regret. If only she had cut Fang Chen down earlier, how could today's battle have encountered so many unexpected twists and turns? Save the energy you're wasting cursing me to run for your life instead. Fang Chen flung the iron mace, the very item that would decide the outcome of the battlefield, high into the clouds overhead. At the far western horizon, a bolt of lightning instantly appeared, casting flickering light over the dark boundary between heaven and earth, alternating between brightness and shadow. Immediately after, as if responding to the call, a bolt of lightning also appeared in the extreme eastern direction. Afterwards, lightning appeared in each of the 4 cardinal directions of the world. No thunder rumbles could be heard, indicating they were separated by an immense distance. The lightning flashed unceasingly, drawing ever closer, an unmistakable sign that the iron mace was successfully drawing the tribulation lightning to the battlefield. Yaoyu's countenance shifted again and again. Her corpse army feared heavenly thunder more than anything else. In thunderstorm weather, Death Kai was the easiest target for heavenly lightning to strike. If this was further paired with disciples of the True Thunder sect unleashing Thunder Path cultivation methods to direct the lightning wherever they wished, let alone the corpse army, even she herself would be in grave peril. Heaven does not favor me. You glared furiously at the vault of heaven. She had finally caught a glimpse of victory, only for a wave of heavenly thunder to bring with it an enormous threat. But retreat was unthinkable to her. Glancing at the peak of the boundary mountain that was so close at hand, then at Fang Chen's loathsome figure, she slammed a fist down on the mount beneath her. She roared out orders. All troops listen to my command. Focus all attacks on the disciples of the True Thunder sect. Ignore all others. Heavenly thunder may be formidable, but without disciples of the True Thunder sect to guide it with their Thunder Path cultivation methods, it poses no real threat. In other words, eliminate the True Thunder sect disciples, and I will still hold overwhelming odds of victory. As soon as the order was given, the battlefield shifted abruptly. The beast tide that had been assaulting the four great sects abandoned the Grand Supreme sect, Myriad Sword sect, and Giant sect in unison, all surging towards the True Thunder sect. Pressure on the True Thunder sect increased exponentially. One elder was caught off guard while he was blasting apart the corpse puppet in front of him, and a corpse puppet attacking from the side tore his head clean off with one claw. Several disciples were also ambushed and killed by the madly surging corpse puppets. Lei Zhenghai's eyes were bloodshot with rage as he roared, "Protect all disciples of the True Thunder sect. Wait until the heavenly thunder converges, and that will be the day of reckoning for all these corpse puppets." The iron mace had successfully drawn the heavenly thunder, but the lightning was coming from an extremely far distance and required a short span of time to arrive. Yaoyu was fighting to exploit this time gap. If she could wipe out the True Thunder sect disciples within this window, the threat would be greatly diminished. If not, she herself would face grave danger. The other three sects reacted instantly, all rushing to the vicinity of the True Thunder sect disciples. While beating back the surging beast tide, they guided the True Thunder sect disciples to retreat to the rear, buying precious time for them. Seeing this scene, Yaoyu's brows furrowed tightly. She could not afford to stall for time. Glancing at the great walls on both sides of the boundary mountain, the four great sects, Sky Sound sect, Thousand Forging sect, Joyous Union sect, and Spirit Beast sect were each guarding the two flanks. Their strength was far weaker than the four sects stationed on the boundary mountain. A glint flashed across her eyes as she issued new orders. The rear troops attack from both flanks, break through the defensive lines, then circle around to the rear of the boundary mountain. Once we attack from both front and back, not only will the True Thunder sect disciples be doomed, but the entire defensive line on the boundary mountain will completely collapse as well. If the human cultivators and corpse puppets were dragged into a chaotic melee, the corpse army would absolutely win by crushing them with their overwhelming numerical advantage. Once the order was issued, the beast tied at the front continued their mad assault on the True Thunder sect disciples, while the beast tied at the rear split into four columns, charging towards the four guarding sects. The disciples of the four sects were on high alert, but remained relatively calm. For one, the number of demonic beasts was far less terrifying than that on the boundary mountain. For another, they could rely on the smooth, vertical 100 Zhenghai city walls, and could also kill enemies by throwing burning firewood down from above. However, since you dared to launch an attack on the city walls, she had naturally already made full preparations. The first to advance were enormous large-scale corpse puppets, measuring a full 30 zhang in height. They slammed violently into the city walls, doing their utmost to shatter the ice covering the wall surface. Even if they were burned to death beneath the walls, it did not matter, for their colossal bodies would become stepping stones for the corpse puppets following behind them. In less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the areas beneath all four city walls were piled high with the corpses of corpse puppets, the mound almost reaching the height of the walls themselves. The unavoidable frontal battle had finally arrived. What made Lei Zhenghai, who had been keeping a close eye on the situation, feel his heart sink was that compared to the three upper sects and the True Thunder sect, the strength of these four sects was clearly a notch lower. Their defensive lines had all loosened to varying degrees, with the Joyous Union sect faring the worst. Most of the cultivation methods their disciples practiced were charm techniques, with very few offensive arts. Charm techniques might be highly effective against human foes, but against demonic beasts, much less dead demonic beasts, they were completely useless. Corpse puppets had no appreciation for romance or allure. They would slash with their claws the moment they drew close, and bite the second they opened their mouths. In the blink of an eye, a female elder fell to her tragic demise, and multiple disciples were wounded in the chaos. Yao Yu was also among those who witnessed this grim scene. The corner of her lips curled up in a cold smirk as she spoke. The sturdiness of a city wall is always determined by its weakest point. The other three teams each dispatched 500 units to assault the Hehuan sect. The pressure on the other three sects decreased drastically, only for the full burden to fall on the Hehuan sect, which faced exponentially mounting strain. Following the fall of yet another elder, their defense line completely collapsed. Over a dozen corpse puppets leaped onto the city wall, surrounding and slaughtering the remaining defenders. With only one elder and a dozen disciples left, they stood no chance of resistance. This was a completely one-sided massacre. In the span of a single breath, only 3 disciples remained alive, and the elder protecting them with all his strength could not possibly hold on for more than a few more moments. Lei Zhenghai watched with his heart in his throat, roaring loudly, "We have no choice but to deploy the Qingyun sect's final reserve force." What troubled Lei Zhenghai deeply was that the strength of Qingyun sect's elders and disciples was not much higher than that of the Hehuan sect. Would they even be able to hold back the beast tide? The other 3 sects stationed on Boundary Mountain all cast anxious gazes toward the Qingyun sect. If Qingyun sect also fell, the endless horde of corpse puppets would break through the Great Wall and advance unopposed. By then, there would be no way to reverse their doomed fate. Lai Qingfeng clenched his jaw, his tone heavy as he spoke. "Remember what I said before the battle. No one is allowed to retreat. No one shall disgrace the Qingyun sect." The disciples' faces were grim. The moment Qingyun sect's disciples entered the fray, it signaled that the battle was on the verge of total collapse. If they did not fight, they would die. If they fought, they might still die. Their fates were no longer in their own hands. "Charge!" Lai Qingfeng roared, drawing his magical artifact first, and rushing toward the position guarded by the Hehuan sect. Just as he arrived, a colossal corpse puppet clambered over the city wall. Lai Qingfeng reacted swiftly, piercing through and shattering the death kai in its abdomen with his sword. But in that brief moment of delay, the Hehuan sect elder, besieged by over a dozen corpse puppets, finally lost his strength, his heart pierced through by a tail, dying a violent death on the spot. Lai Qingfeng's face was icy as he sliced through the corpse puppets with his sword, revealing the 3 remaining disciples. Wen Hongyao and Zhao Wuji, their faces filled with grief and rage, also charged into the fray one after another to slay the corpse puppets. Fang Chen's eyes also flashed with cold killing intent. The Hehuan sect's team of over 20 people had been reduced to only 3 disciples, 2 of whom were severely wounded. Only Jai Rai Yu was relatively unharmed, struggling to protect them while besieged by 2 corpse puppets. She was already completely exhausted, and having to guard her fellow disciples behind her at all times, how could she possibly fend off 2 corpse puppets? With a wet, tearing sound, a corpse puppet pounced forward, its massive mouth full of sharp teeth clamping down on her. Jai Rai Yu immediately felt a bone-chilling stabbing pain as the teeth pierced her flesh, spreading like electric current throughout her entire body. All strength was immediately drained from her limbs, leaving her completely immobile. The Qingfeng sword in her palm clattered silently to the ground, its cold, pale blade reflecting the sight of her being carried away in the demonic beast's jaws. Jai Rai Yu's mind went completely blank. Was this how it all ended? Boom! At that exact moment, a deafening shockwave exploded out, blowing her hair wildly and leaving her ears ringing. Her world spun violently, and then she crashed onto the cold ground. She stared blankly, not yet understanding what had happened, when another thunderous crash rang out. The massive bone beast that had abducted her collapsed to the ground. Perched atop its hideous head was the figure of a young man, holding a multicolored small mountain in his left hand and an ice-gold longsword in his right. A gaping hole was clearly visible in the bone beast's chest, and the remaining death kai within dissipated with the wind. Junior brother Fang, Jai Rai, you stared at the young man whose robes were flapping violently in the wind, his face cold and impassive, and froze on the spot for a moment. It was only when Fang Chen tossed her a rejuvenation pill and said fall back that she snapped out of her daze. With that, Fang Chen wielded the Eishuang sword, moving with astounding footwork as he weaved through the hordes of corpse puppets. Every strike of his sword turned death kai to ash beneath its cold gleam, and every slam of his multicolored mountain sent a corpse puppet crashing to the ground. Of the dozen corpse puppets rampaging on the city wall, he had slain 6 in an instant, drawing shocked exclamations from the elders and disciples of the other 7 sects. The crowd burst into heated discussion. What is the deal with this disciple named Fang Chen? Even his 3 elders aren't killing as fast as he is. He killed another one, instant kill. Every strike is clean and precise, with no wasted movement. Is someone this strong even considered a disciple? While the 3 Qingyun sect elders were indeed turning the tide and slaying a great number of corpse puppets, Fang Chen, a mere disciple, was displaying strength far beyond all expectations. Lei Feng was also stunned. Fang Chen, you. For a moment, he could not tell if Fang Chen's advantage came from his overwhelming raw strength, his exquisite footwork, or his lightning, fast strikes. But they had finally managed to stabilize the defense line, and there was no time to dwell on it. He immediately said, "Hold the line, we still have hope." He glanced up at the sky. Thunder and lightning were already gathering in the distance, soon to converge above the battlefield. Yao Yu was simultaneously battling Lei Zhenghai from afar with magical arts and observing the battle situation. She had watched the Hehuan sect get wiped out and their defense line breached, only for a Qingyun sect unit to cut in unexpectedly. "You won't last much longer either," Yao Yu snorted coldly. The overall strength of Qingyun sect is barely higher than that of the Hehuan sect. Even with that powerful Fang Chen helping you, there are fully 1,500 corpse puppets. Not even one of the 3 upper sects could fend off that many. The tide of destiny cannot be reversed by the will of a single person. It is only a matter of time before Qingyun's sect collapses. Sure enough, as more and more corpse puppets arrived, Lei Feng and the other 2 at the front line gradually felt the immense pressure, as if they were holding back an apocalyptic flood, leaving them gasping for air and overwhelmed with helplessness. This was only possible because Fang Chen was behind them, continuously using his sword control technique to precisely slay corpse puppets one after another. If not for Fang Chen's powerful support reducing part of their burden, they would have already suffered the same fate as the Hehuan sect. After half an incense stick's worth of stalemate, Lei Feng and the other 2 were clearly exhausted, finding it harder and harder to repel the corpse puppets, leaving the forces of the 7 sects extremely anxious. Someone sighed. Qingyun sect can't hold on much longer. They are facing far too many corpse puppets. Even our Tianian sect struggles greatly against only 500 of them. It is already a miracle they have lasted this long. The defense line is about to break. A trace of despair crossed Lei Zhenghai's face. The last reserve force had already been fully deployed, and the tribulation lightning still had not finished gathering. If only they had another incense stick's worth of time. But there was no more chance. Heaven condemns me to perish. He let out a long, heavy sigh. In stark contrast, a flicker of manic excitement crossed Yao Yu's face. This time, no one shall come to your rescue. Just as all forces closely watched the Qingyun sect, expecting it to imminently collapse, Fang Chen suddenly spoke. "Take the spirit replenishing elixir." He first swallowed a spirit replenishing elixir himself without delay. Fighting with every ounce of his strength consumed far more spiritual power than simply employing movement techniques. The 3 elders and all disciples immediately took out a precious spirit, replenishing elixir, and consumed it. The disciples' spiritual power was fully restored in an instant. Wen Hongyao and Zhao Wuji, who were at the mid-golden core realm, recovered 80% of their spiritual power, while Lei Feng at the late golden core realm had a full 60% of his spiritual power replenished. Everyone cried out in awe at its miraculous effect. With their spiritual power fully restored, they once again displayed shocking combat prowess, and their slightly slackened defensive line became impenetrably sturdy once more. The members of the 7 sects froze for a moment, then immediately broke out in joy, frequently glancing up at the sky. Lei Zhenghai also wore a delighted expression. "Hold fast. The tribulation lightning will arrive shortly." At this moment, faint rolling thunder could already be heard from the heavens, signifying that tribulation clouds had gathered nearby. It would not be long before the tribulation lightning descended to annihilate the enemies. Yao Yu's face turned as dark as churning storm water. She recalled when she had chased Fang Chen previously, he had also taken a mysterious medicinal pill when his spiritual power was exhausted to fully restore his strength. Fang Chen actually possessed more than one of these heaven-defying elixirs, and had even distributed them to every single member of the Qingyun sect. "It's you again, Fang Chen." Yao Yu gnashed her silver teeth and snarled in unbridled hatred. As Fang Chen fought with all his might to slay the corpse puppets, he glanced at her from afar and snorted coldly. "It ends here, she-devil. Prepare to meet your doom." At this moment, thunder rumbled across the sky, as cyan-purple lightning coiled among the clouds like divine dragons, occasionally emitting terrifying whirl, destroying thunder radiance. Yao Yu's expression shifted drastically, and she retreated rapidly, her face etched with deep fear. The heavenly tribulation had fully formed, and the tide of battle was irreversibly lost for her. But just then, as if sensing something, Yao Yu's face lit up with joy as she looked toward the disciples of the True Thunder sect, a cruel smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth, though it arrived a little later than expected. It is not too late. Fang Chen had been keeping a close eye on this woman the entire time. Noticing her abnormal behavior, a grim premonition immediately rose in his heart, and he spoke. Sect Master Lei, this woman is full of treacherous schemes and has endless tricks at her disposal. Trigger the tribulation, lightning, immediately to annihilate her. Lei Zhenghai looked at the fully formed tribulation lightning, the world, destroying thunder light reflected in his eyes. His entire aura surged as he thundered. Disciples of the True Thunder sect, hear my order. Cast your spells immediately. Guide the tribulation lightning down to wipe out the enemy. 2 elders and 18 disciples immediately gathered together, all solemnly casting the guiding cultivation method toward the clouds. The elders and disciples of the various sects, who had been struggling to hold their ground, all wore elated expressions on their faces.
The tribulation thunder is ready! Yao Yan, your end is here!
Is it? Look at your precious disciples. They won't live to see the first strike.
Watch me turn the tide against all odds. Like and subscribe for the final flip.
Devour them all. Let none escape.